All right, so get ready, because today we're going to Iceland.
Yeah.
We found this really interesting vlog
Okay.
by a traveler who claims to have spent 10 days there
10 days?
on a super tight budget.
Wow.
Like, we're talking $600 per person,
Okay.
not including flights.
All right.
So that got me thinking,
Yeah.
can you really do Iceland on the cheap like that?
Well, that's a pretty bold claim.
Right.
Iceland has a reputation,
Yeah.
for being expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm interested to see how they pulled that off.
Me too.
And what's really cool is that this vlog is in Chinese.
Oh, wow.
So it gives us a different perspective.
Yeah.
One that we might not find in the typical travel guides and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's dive into like how they managed this budget trip,
Yeah.
right? So they were very meticulous about tracking all their expenses.
Okay.
And they use this app called Swise,
Swise.
which I've never even heard of.
Oh, yeah?
Is it like a travel-specific budgeting tool?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty popular, actually,
Yeah.
with, budget-conscious travelers.
All right.
It helps you set daily spending limits, track expenses in different currencies,
Oh, wow. That is really...
and even split costs with your travel buddies.
Oh, very cool.
So the fact that this traveler was using it so diligently,
Right.
I think that shows a real commitment to staying on budget.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So they weren't just like winging it or anything.
Right, exactly.
And speaking of companions,
Yeah.
they did mention traveling with 2 other people.
Okay.
Do you think that helped them keep costs down?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Group travel is a classic way
Okay.
to make a destination more affordable.
Makes sense.
Just think about it.
Yeah.
Even something like booking a multi-person room
Oh, yeah.
versus individual bookings,
Right.
can make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely.
But there is a little catch here.
Okay.
This trip took place in the summer of 2022,
Okay.
before inflation really hit.
All right.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for someone planning a trip like today?
Well,
Like, would $600 still be enough?
probably not.
Yeah.
We're looking at a potential 20 to 30%
Wow.
increase in costs for 2024, 2025,
Okay.
just because of inflation.
Right.
Prices are going up across the board.
Yeah.
Everything from gas and groceries to hotels and tours.
Wow. So we're talking closer to maybe $1,000.
Yeah, you're probably looking at closer to $1,000 per person now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe not as crazy cheap
Right.
as it initially sounded.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, pretty impressive for 10 days in Iceland.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want to move beyond the numbers.
Okay.
Did they share any tips on how to keep costs down?
They did.
Okay.
They strongly recommend renting just a basic car and then using the travel insurance that's provided by most credit cards.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah, because that can save you a lot of money
Yeah.
compared to buying the extra insurance from the rental company.
Right, because they always try to upsell you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about sightseeing? Did they have like a specific itinerary planned? Or were they kind of just winging it?
Their approach to sightseeing was really interesting, actually. They basically said,
Yeah.
drive until you see a site, pull over, explore, and then continue on your way.
Wow.
So they were all about spontaneity.
Yeah.
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 But to make that work,
Right.
they also recommended booking accommodations in advance,
Okay.
especially since Iceland's becoming more and more popular,
Right. Yeah.
Places book up fast.
Yeah, that's true.
But they also suggested that if you can't find any traditional lodging,
Right.
like hotels or guest houses,
Yeah.
that you could look into camper van options.
Oh, interesting.
Or even sleeping in a spacious SUV
Wait, sleeping in an SUV?
or an EV.
Oh, an EV. Okay.
Yeah.
How did that even work?
Well, they were a little vague on the specifics, but it seemed like they were open to both campsites
Okay.
and finding safe spots to park for the night.
Right.
And they even mentioned that some EV models
Yeah.
are actually spacious enough to sleep in comfortably.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of adventurous.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm starting to see a theme here.
What's that?
It seems like this traveler is all about maximizing the experiences
Mm-hmm.
while minimizing the costs.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But didn't they say something about Icelandic food
Yeah.
being kind of lackluster?
They did.
Yeah.
They said they found the food bland.
Bland.
Yeah. Which, could be due to a lot of factors.
Yeah.
Traditional Icelandic cuisine developed in a pretty harsh environment with limited ingredients.
Right.
So it might not be as vibrant or spicy as some other cuisines.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't delicious things to discover.
Right. Maybe it's an opportunity to challenge your palate a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And see how they use local ingredients and stuff.
Definitely.
I'm picturing some hearty stews.
Yeah.
Fresh seafood.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess if you're on a super tight budget, those fancy restaurants are probably out of the question.
Exactly.
Right.
They actually emphasize sticking to simple meals.
Okay.
Like hot dogs.
Hot dogs.
Apparently those are a big thing in Iceland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And trying local fare for the first few days?
Right.
To avoid palate fatigue, I guess?
Yeah, I guess even bland food can get old after a while.
Yeah, probably.
But their description of trying to, like, appreciate the food was pretty funny.
Okay.
They said it was like eyes in heaven, body on earth.
Uh-huh. Okay. That's a great visual.
Yeah.
So clearly food was not the highlight of their trip.
Right.
So what kept them coming back for more despite the, bland food and stuff?
Yeah, good question. Well, they were blown away by the landscapes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they actually rated Iceland as their top travel destination, giving it a 9.5 out of 10.
9.5. That's impressive.
Yeah.
What do you think made it stand out compared to other places known for their scenery?
Well, they specifically mentioned Alaska and Yellowstone.
Okay.
And they said that it was just the diversity of the landscapes in Iceland.
Oh, okay.
You've got glaciers,
Yeah.
volcanoes,
Wow.
waterfalls, black sand beaches.
That's amazing.
It's like, they said, a greatest hits compilation of natural wonders all packed into one island.
Yeah, it's like getting multiple trips in one.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But they did talk about finding their travel companions online.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's always a little bit of a gamble.
It is.
Yeah.
They found 2 Taiwanese travelers through online forums.
All right.
And they emphasized that it was really important to, like, chat beforehand to make sure that they would be compatible.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Especially spending 10 days.
Exactly 10 days in close quarters with people that you barely know.
Right.
Could definitely go wrong.
Yeah, I can imagine.
If you're not careful.
I once had a travel buddy who insisted on, like, planning every minute of every day.
Oh, wow.
It was exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, down to the exact time we were leaving each attraction.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm more of a go-with-the-flow kind of traveler.
Yeah, me too.
What about you?
Oh, yeah. I've definitely had my share of travel companion horror stories.
Oh, really?
Yeah, let's just say I learned the hard way that sharing a tiny hostel room with someone who snores like a chainsaw is not exactly conducive to a restful vacation.
Oh my gosh.
So it seems like our vlogger got lucky.
Yeah, they did.
With some good companions.
What about you, listener?
Yeah. Have you had any travel buddy conflicts?
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
Speaking of potential conflicts.
Okay.
The vlogger did mention some not-so-positive experiences with locals.
Yeah.
Even hinting at possible discrimination because they were Asian.
Yeah.
Did they elaborate on that at all?
They did. They described a couple of incidents.
No.
One where an older woman in a shop was pretty rude to them.
Oh, wow.
And another one where a bar owner was really harsh about them bringing in outside drinks. But it's important to remember that this was during the pandemic in 2022.
Oh, right.
Which was a stressful time for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
So that could have definitely influenced people's behavior.
Yeah, travel during that period was a whole different beast.
It really was.
But still, it's something to be mindful of.
Yeah. How much do you think isolated incidents like this should affect our perception of a place?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
I think it's important to acknowledge these experiences and reflect on what they might tell us about a place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't want to let a few bad experiences overshadow the whole trip.
Right.
You know, it's all about finding that balance between being aware and being open-minded.
That's true.
So would you say that this traveler's positive experiences in Iceland outweighed the negative ones?
Definitely. Remember, they gave it a 9.5 out of 10.
That's true.
You know, they were clearly blown away by the natural beauty.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to do it on a budget made it even more special.
Yeah.
However, they did have one big regret.
Was it the Northern Lights?
Bingo.
Okay.
Traveling during the summer meant that they had no chance of seeing the aurora.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, it's a good reminder that timing is everything.
That's so true.
When it comes to certain travel experiences.
I remember planning a trip to Japan.
Yeah.
Specifically to see the cherry blossoms.
Oh, nice.
And it was beautiful. But I missed out on seeing Mount Fuji.
Oh.
Because it was always shrouded in clouds.
Oh, bummer.
That time of year.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing about Iceland.
Yeah.
It's one of the few places where you can actually potentially see the northern lights.
Okay.
Across the entire country. Not just in specific regions.
Oh, that's cool.
So just imagine witnessing that spectacle.
Oh, yeah.
With those incredible landscapes as the backdrop.
That would be amazing.
Pretty tempting, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm already picturing myself bundled up in a cozy cabin.
Yeah.
Sipping on some hot chocolate.
Nice.
Gazing up at the dancing lights.
That sounds amazing.
So they may have missed out this time.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they've got a good excuse to plan another trip.
Exactly. And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll even try those camper van or EV sleeping options next time.
That'll be an adventure.
Yeah.
So after diving into this traveler's experience,
Yeah.
what would you say are some of the key takeaways for our listeners who might be dreaming of an Icelandic adventure?
Okay.
So it seems like you can actually do Iceland without breaking the bank.
Yeah, if you're willing to be a little adventurous.
All right.
And, prioritize experiences over luxury.
Yeah.
Then you can definitely do it affordably.
Yeah. I really liked their whole drive till you see something cool approach.
Oh, yeah, me too.
It's like a good reminder that
Yeah.
the best travel experiences are sometimes the unplanned ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just embrace the spontaneity.
Yeah. And let's not forget just like the sheer diversity
Oh, yeah.
of Iceland's landscapes.
Just incredible.
Glaciers, volcanoes, waterfalls, black sand, beaches.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a nature lover's paradise.
Yeah, it is. But we should mention that the vlogger did talk about a few instances where they felt like they weren't treated very well.
Yeah.
And they thought it might have been because of their ethnicity.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even in beautiful places, we need to be mindful of cultural differences.
For sure.
And potential biases.
Yeah, it's always good to do your research.
Definitely.
Before you go.
Yeah.
So you understand the local customs and, just be prepared to navigate those situations respectfully. So for our listener who might be on the fence about Iceland.
Okay.
What would you say is the biggest takeaway from this whole deep dive?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Iceland offers this incredible opportunity to experience raw, untouched nature in a way that few other destinations can match.
Yeah.
But it's not for everyone.
Right.
If you're someone who needs 5-star luxury and gourmet dining, you're probably going to be disappointed.
Yeah. But if you're open to adventure, you're willing to embrace spontaneity, and you prioritize connecting with nature over creature comforts.
Exactly.
Then Iceland might just be your dream destination.
It might be.
And hey, maybe you'll even get lucky and catch the northern lights.
That's right. Our vlogger missed out on those.
Yeah, they did.
But you never know.
Yeah.
You might get lucky.
So to wrap things up,
here's
a thought-provoking question for our listener.
Okay.
Would you trade gourmet meals?
Ooh.
And luxury accommodations.
Okay.
For a chance to witness the northern lights.
Wow.
Dancing across Iceland's breathtaking landscapes.
That's a good one.
Yeah, something to think about.
Yeah.
As you plan your next adventure.
Definitely. And don't forget to check out the vloggers' videos.
Oh, yeah.
To get a first-hand look at their experience.
Yeah.
You might even discover some hidden gems and tips that we didn't have time to cover.
That's true.
In this deep dive.
All right, so until next time.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
See you next time. All right, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. Today, we're heading to Iceland.
Oh, cool. The land of fire and ice.
Right. And, we're going to be experiencing it vicariously this time through a YouTube video, actually.
Oh, interesting. What video?
It's called ICA.
Okay, I'm going to need a translation on that one.
Haha, fair enough. It means Icelandic lamb hot dogs are really delicious.
Okay, so we're talking food adventures in Iceland. I'm in.
Me too. It's from a channel called Asu, basically, Lao Tzu's diary. And it follows this traveler on their first day exploring Iceland.
All right, first day jitters, Icelandic style. What are we diving into first?
Well, right off the bat, the YouTuber claims that Iceland isn't as expensive as people think.
That's a common perception, for sure. But is it really true?
That's what we're here to find out. I mean, I've always heard Iceland is super pricey.
It can be, yeah. I mean, it's an island nation, right? So a lot of the things have to be imported, which drives up costs. Plus, you've got all those unique tourist attractions, glacier hikes, lagoon visits, those sorts of things. Those don't come cheap.
So is this YouTuber just like super lucky?
Yeah.
Or are they letting us in on some budget travel secrets?
Maybe a bit of both. But even in the video's intro, they mention having to buy clothes at the airport because their luggage got lost.
Oh no, talk about a travel nightmare.
Right, and they even point out that the clothes weren't cheap, but also not too expensive, which kind of hints that they're mindful of cost.
Okay, so maybe it's less about secrets and more about being a savvy traveler making smart choices.
Exactly, being prepared for the unexpected and all that.
Good point. So their journey starts at Keflavik Airport. They actually point out things like the comfy seats and even a Hong Kong anniversary ad.
Interesting. Those little details can be really telling.
How so?
Well, think about it. The comfy seats might suggest that Iceland is really focused on making travelers feel comfortable, emphasizing that tourism aspect. And the ad speaks to the airport's global connections, I guess. Maybe hinting at the diverse crowd you might encounter there.
Yeah, I get that. It's like setting the scene, creating that first impression.
Exactly. And speaking of first impressions, we can't forget about the star of the show, the hot dog.
The Icelandic lamb hot dog. They rave about how delicious it is.
And it's not just any hot dog. That lamb is a big deal, culturally speaking.
Oh, I didn't know that. How so?
Well, for centuries, Iceland relied heavily on, fishing and sheep farming. So lamb became a staple, not just for food, but also for their cultural identity,
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. And today, you see lamb featured in so many Icelandic dishes. The hot dog is a delicious symbol of that heritage.
So it's like a bite of history, literally. I love that. Okay, so after the hot dog, they head to, of course, the iconic Hallgrímskirkja church. They compare its architecture to a futuristic spaceship, which, I kind of see it.
Yeah, it's a pretty common comparison. Hallgrímskirkja definitely have that unique kind of otherworldly feel, all those soaring lines and that stark white concrete.
Right, and then they talk about the interior, describing it as having a Nordic style, which is minimalist and sexually indifferent.
Okay, so I get the minimalist part, but that other term, sexually indifferent, I'm not sure I follow.
Me neither.
Well, in this context, I think it probably means that the design avoids overtly gendered elements. Think about traditional churches,
Yeah.
They're often very ornate, filled with imagery tied to specific saints or biblical figures.
Right.
A lot of those figures, historically, are male. So I think the YouTuber is probably picking up on that absence of those traditional gender-specific elements.
That makes sense. So it's more about simplicity and functionality without leaning on those traditional gender roles, I guess.
Exactly. It's a very deliberate design choice.
It makes you wonder if that reflects broader societal values in Iceland.
That's a great question. Something to think about for sure.
Definitely. Okay, so from the spaceship-like church, we head to the streets of Reykjavik. And, well, they kind of contrast the romanticized view of the city with the reality of, simple houses and colorful communities.
That's interesting. What do they mean by that?
Well, they're basically saying that Reykjavik isn't this, picture-perfect, breathtakingly beautiful city.
Right.
But it's not ugly either. It's just, different.
I think that's a really astute observation. Reykjavik's charm is in the details. It's not about grandiosity. It's about those colorful houses, often clad in corrugated metal, to withstand the harsh weather.
Oh, yeah. I've seen pictures.
They're functional, but also visually striking. It reflects a certain resilience and practicality that I find really fascinating.
Yeah, it's like beauty and functionality.
Exactly. And it challenges our preconceived notions of what a capital city should look like.
For sure. And speaking of challenges, the YouTuber then has this encounter with some wildlife by a lake near the church. They're feeding bread to swans and ducks, but then they kind of admit that it might not be the most environmentally friendly thing to do.
Oh, that's a classic tourist dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
That balance between wanting to connect with nature, but then realizing you might be doing more harm than good.
Yeah, I've totally been there. It's tough.
It's a good reminder to be mindful, even in seemingly harmless situations.
Absolutely. We got to think about the impact of our actions, even when we're just trying to enjoy the moment.
Right. Even small things can make a difference. It's a constant learning process, right? We're all kind of becoming more aware of our impact on the environment these days, even down to those little things like feeding birds.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a constant reminder to be more mindful. But speaking of reminders, what about that whole budget-friendly Iceland thing? I mean, they did have to buy new clothes because of the lost luggage.
Oh yeah, true. Unexpected expenses are definitely a reality of travel.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they handled it pretty well, still focusing on being, frugal. And remember, they said those purchases were not cheap, but not too expensive. So clearly price was a factor.
Right. So maybe it's less about like finding secrets and more about just being, I don't know, a smart traveler.
Exactly, like planning ahead, doing your research, finding those affordable options.
Yeah.
And being flexible,
Yeah.
That can go a long way, even in a place like Iceland.
Totally. Okay, so back to the adventure. Next, they take us to the top of Hallgrímskirkja Church. And they mention an amazing view from up there.
Oh yeah, the view from the church tower is incredible. You can see like all of Reykjavik stretching out towards the bay, and then there are mountains in the distance, and even glimpses of the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow.
It's really popular with photographers, especially at sunset.
Oh, I bet. They also mention a sculpture on top of the church, but they're not sure who it is. Any idea?
Oh, that's the statue of Leif Erikson. He was a Norse explorer, pretty important figure in Icelandic history.
Oh, cool. So even the church tower has a little history lesson built in.
Right. Iceland is full of those little surprises.
I love that. What's interesting is they connect that view from the tower to a feeling of, like, tranquility. They describe the nearby lake as an outdoor peach garden.
Oh, I see what they mean.
Yeah.
It really captures that blend of nature and city life that you get in Reykjavik. Even right in the heart of the city, there are all these green spaces. And that lake, Tjörnin, is a perfect example. It attracts all sorts of birds, and people just like flock there for a bit of peace and quiet.
Oh, that's lovely. It's like a little oasis within the city.
Exactly, a little escape.
Makes you want to book a flight, doesn't it?
Almost. Although, speaking of those birds, it does make me think back to that whole bread feeding situation earlier.
Right. Like, even with those good intentions, gotta be careful.
Yeah. The more tourism grows, the more important it is to, minimize our impact. Be informed and make those conscious choices.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered the airport, the hot dog, the amazing church, a little bit of Reykjavik's charm, but their day isn't over yet. They end the video talking about dinner at this highly rated restaurant, but it turns out to be a bit of a letdown.
Oh, that's always a bummer. When expectations don't quite meet reality.
Right, and they don't sugarcoat it either. They talk about, like, lukewarm prawns, unappetizing strawberries, just overall not a great meal. Makes it feel more relatable, though,
Yeah, definitely. It's refreshing to see that honesty. It reminds us that travel isn't always perfect, Instagram-worthy moments.
Right. Sometimes things just don't work out, but it's part of the experience.
Exactly. And it also highlights something we often forget about. The whole subjectivity of taste. What one person finds disappointing, another person might absolutely love.
True. Although they did mention enjoying the sunset views from the restaurant, so maybe that helped salvage the experience a little bit.
Oh, Icelandic sunsets are incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, the way the light hits the landscape, all those colors, it's no wonder they found some solace in that, even with the not-so-great food.
I guess sometimes it's those unexpected moments that leave the biggest impression,
For sure. Sometimes it's the unplanned beauty that sticks with you.
Absolutely. So overall, a mixed bag of experiences on this first day. Some great, some not so great. What do you think? Is that pretty typical of what most travelers experience in Iceland?
That's tough to say. Everyone's journey is different, right? Iceland has so much to offer. It just depends what you're looking for. You could have breathtaking landscapes and bustling city life, delicious meals, and, well, maybe some not so delicious ones.
So more like their video is less of a definitive guide and more of a starting point.
I think so, yeah. It's more about sparking that curiosity, inspiring people to create their own adventures, form their own opinions.
I like that. Leave room for individual experience.
Exactly.
Speaking of sparking curiosity, they do end the video with this really vivid description of the sunset. They call it science fiction-esque and mention a huge shape resembling a rib cage or spaceship against this, pink and gold sky.
Ooh, I can just imagine it.
I know, right? I'm looking at the video stills now, and yeah, it does have that kind of otherworldly feel to it.
That's what I love about Iceland. It's the kind of place that just pushes your imagination. The volcanic formations, those vast glaciers, it's like something out of a dream.
It's like nature itself is an artist.
Right. And that sense of wonder, of being transported to another world, is what makes Iceland so captivating.
Totally agree. Well, we've only just scratched the surface of this Icelandic adventure. I can't wait to see what other wonders await us. Okay, so we've explored Reykjavik through this YouTuber's eyes, the iconic stuff, the unexpected encounters, even the not-so-great meal. I'm curious to see where their Icelandic adventure takes us next.
Well, remember, the video title did promise delicious lamb hot dogs. So I think food's going to keep playing a big role.
You're totally right, and given their, somewhat discerning palate, I'm curious to see what other culinary experiences they uncover. Think they'll venture beyond the hot dogs and really delve into Icelandic cuisine.
I hope so. Iceland has a really fascinating culinary scene, deeply rooted in tradition, but also embracing those modern influences.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
Well, what's really interesting is their focus on local and seasonal ingredients. Fresh seafood straight from the North Atlantic, lamb raised on those rugged landscapes, wild berries foraged from, the volcanic soil.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right.
It's incredible how geography and climate really shape a culture's cuisine.
Totally. And it's not just the ingredients either. They have these unique cooking methods and preservation techniques that are tied to their history.
Oh, like what?
Well, for example, they have this tradition of smoking and drying fish. They use geothermal heat and that cool, clean air to create this distinct flavor profile.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's like nature and ingenuity coming together on a plate. I'm kind of hungry now.
Me too.
Maybe we should try some Icelandic recipes ourselves.
Down. But for now, maybe we should shift our focus from the culinary to the visual.
Good idea.
We've talked about Reykjavik, but what about all those natural wonders that draw so many people to Iceland?
Oh yeah, for sure. The glaciers, the volcanoes, the geysers, the waterfalls. I'm dying to see how they capture those. Think they'll venture beyond the city limits.
I'd be surprised if they didn't. Iceland just begs to be explored, right? A lot of visitors end up doing road trips or guided tours to experience all of that firsthand.
I can only imagine. Witnessing the power of Gullfoss waterfall or standing under the northern lights.
Bucket list stuff for sure.
Totally. And speaking of dreams, they did describe that sunset as science fiction-esque, which honestly feels like the perfect way to describe a lot of Iceland's landscapes. That light and shadow, the volcanic formations, the vast glaciers reflecting the sky, it's like another world.
It really is. And it's that constant challenge to our perception of beauty, I think, that makes it so special.
It's like nature itself is an artist.
Right. And Iceland is the canvas. No wonder it's such a magnet for photographers and filmmakers.
Yeah, it's like inspiration overload.
For sure. And even if we don't get to experience it all firsthand, even just hearing their descriptions, seeing those glimpses in the video, it sparks something, doesn't it?
It totally does. This whole deep dive has been such a treat, like a mini virtual vacation.
I know, right?
We've gone from that bustling airport to the quiet lake, from a simple hot dog to that disappointing dinner with the incredible view. And through it all, I feel like we've gotten a real sense of Iceland, the culture, the history, the natural beauty.
And I think, maybe even more importantly, we've been reminded that travel is about more than just checking things off a list. It's about embracing the unexpected, the good and the bad, and letting those experiences shape how we see the world.
So well said. All right, as we wrap up this deep dive, I have one final thought for our listeners. Would you be swayed by this YouTuber's mixed experience, or has it just made you even more curious to experience Iceland for yourself and form your own conclusions? Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the world around you. All right, let's dive in. This time, we're heading to Iceland, virtually, of course.
Sounds chilly.
It might be, yeah. But we've got Laur Hugh to keep us warm with their YouTube travel journal.
Ah, so we're getting a first-hand account.
Exactly. And their second day is jam-packed, glaciers, geysers, even
Even what? Don't leave me hanging.
You'll see. It involves the most scenic bathroom break ever.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Gotta love those unexpected travel gems, right? It's what makes these personal journals so fun.
Absolutely. You feel like you're right there with them, and Laur Hugh's energy, it's contagious. They start the day on the Golden Circle route.
Classic Iceland. Can't go wrong with that.
And the first thing they talk about, driving, they make it sound so easy, like steering a bumper car.
Bumper car in Iceland? That's a new one.
Right. It made me realize Iceland's pretty accessible. You don't have to be a hardcore adventurer to enjoy it.
Makes sense. They've done a great job balancing tourism with preserving nature. Everyone wins.
And speaking of nature, Laur Hugh paints such a vivid picture. Mountains, plains, glaciers, the ocean, all in one drive.
A feast for the eyes.
Seriously, but hold on, because then they drop this hint about a scenic toilet with the best view in the world, no less.
Bold claim, I'm already picturing it. Makes me think about Icelandic design, too. They're big on blending nature and architecture. Even in unexpected places, maybe.
Ooh, I see where you're going with that. So Lao Zhu gets to the glacier, bundled up, takes a bus to the top.
Okay, I'm seeing it. That crisp air, the white landscape.
And there are rows of snowmobiles waiting, ready for action.
Oh, wow. Talk about an adrenaline rush, though. I hope they're mindful of the environment.
For sure. Responsible tourism is key. But back to the toilet, it's right there in this glacial wonderland.
Wait, amidst all that, okay, go on.
And get this, it has transparent glass walls, a panoramic view because it's tucked away in a secluded spot.
Wow, that's next level. Who needs a window when you have that? It's like nature's art gallery right outside.
Right. And that's just the beginning. Next up, Lao Zhu hits a geyser site, which, I've been to Yellowstone.
Ah, yes, those iconic geysers, a reminder of Earth's raw power.
Exactly, and Lao Zhu compares them. They say the Icelandic one was smaller.
Makes sense. Yellowstone's geysers are pretty hard to beat size-wise.
But this one erupted more frequently, and bonus, way fewer crowds.
So a different experience, maybe even more intimate in a way?
Totally, and it plays into Lao Zhu's whole value for money thing about Iceland. You get these amazing experiences without feeling overwhelmed or ripped off.
That's a great point. It's not always about grandeur. Sometimes it's about those smaller, more authentic moments.
And that leads us to, drumroll please, the Gullfoss waterfall.
Oh, a classic. Can't miss that one.
Lao Zhu tries to pronounce the name hilariously, but you can feel their excitement. This massive waterfall, mist everywhere, creating this magical atmosphere.
Waterfalls are deeply rooted in Icelandic culture. They're in their folklore, their stories, almost mystical.
It's like the landscape shapes their identity. Lao Zhu even jokes about wishing they were a better writer to capture it, but ultimately, simple awe is enough.
Sometimes words fail. You just gotta feel it.
So true, and Iceland seems to be full of those moments. Lao Zhu even says waterfalls are so common there, it's like children peeing everywhere.
Okay, that's a funny way to put it, but it speaks to the abundance, right? When even waterfalls become commonplace.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate the beauty in everything, and Lao Zhu seems to do just that. They even mention how the Icelandic flag itself is a reminder of the landscape.
That's fascinating how national identity is so intertwined with the land.
And it's not just the big landscapes. Lao Zhu also talks about meeting a rabbit and a stray cat. These little heartwarming encounters.
Oh, I love that those small details add so much charm. It's like they're connecting with the heart of the place.
Exactly. It's not just about checking off sites. It's about the whole experience, the unexpected moments, too.
Which reminds me, didn't Lao Zhu mention something about a scolding auntie?
Oh, yeah. They teased it, but saved the story for later. Gotta keep us coming back for more, right?
That smart move creates that cliffhanger. Makes you wonder, who is this auntie and what went down?
The suspense is real.
It really is. And it also highlights how these travel journals capture the unpredictable nature of travel. You never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. It's like we're along for the ride, experiencing it all through Lao Zhu's eyes.
Which is what makes it so compelling. So before we get lost in scolding auntie theories, what's resonating with you most so far?
It's interesting. Beyond the scenery, I'm drawn to Lao Zhu's focus on value, not in a monetary sense, but in experience.
I see that, like squeezing the most out of every moment, whether it's a geyser or a stray cat.
Exactly. It's refreshing, especially when travel is often associated with luxury and spending a ton.
It's a good reminder that joy can be found in the simplest things, the unexpected connection.
Totally, like choosing that cozy local cafe over the fancy tourist trap and having a more authentic experience.
Exactly, and after those transparent walled toilets, who knows, maybe Iceland is redefining luxury altogether.
Haha, maybe so. Nature is the ultimate luxury, I like it, but seriously, what is it about Iceland that draws people in?
It's a powerful mix. You've got those otherworldly landscapes, the ancient culture, the sense of adventure.
It's like stepping into a myth, a storybook, every corner a potential surprise.
Speaking of, let me turn the tables. If you, dear listener, were to journal your travels, what would you focus on? The landscapes, the quirky customs, the food? What makes a place stick with you?
Ooh, great question. It makes you think about what you value in travel, what stories you tell.
Exactly, and maybe by listening to others, we discover our own travel style. What truly resonates with us?
So to our listeners, we want to hear from you. Have you ever been somewhere that changed your perspective, made you see things differently?
Or maybe you have a story, funny, heartwarming, anything that captures the spirit of travel. We're all ears.
Because ultimately, travel is about connection with new places, cultures, and with our own sense of wonder.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our Icelandic adventure for today. Big thanks to Lao Zhu for sharing their journey.
Definitely check out their YouTube channel for more. Who knows, maybe we'll even get that scolding auntie update.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those travel stories coming.
Happy travels, everyone.
And it's often those little unexpected things that you remember the most, right? Those things that weren't on the itinerary. Speaking of unexpected, Lao Zhu ends the video with a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Oh yeah, the scolding auntie. They mention it, but don't tell the whole story. Gotta keep us coming back for more, I guess.
Definitely leaves you wanting more. Makes you think about how these travel journals really capture the spontaneity of it all. You just never know what's going to happen next.
Right. It's like we're right there with them experiencing the ups and downs and the funny moments.
Exactly. So before we get sidetracked trying to figure out the scolding auntie mystery, what's standing out to you the most from Lao Zhu's trip so far?
That's a good question. You know, besides the incredible landscapes, I'm really struck by how much they emphasize value.
Value. Like getting the best deals or...
Not exactly. More like getting the most out of each experience, no matter how big or small, like that geyser, or even just the stray cat. It's not about how much it costs. It's about the feeling you get.
That's a really interesting perspective, especially since travel is often associated with, luxury and spending a lot of money.
Right, but Lao Shu shows that you can find just as much joy and even more authenticity in the simpler things.
Yeah, like maybe choosing a cozy local cafe over a fancy tourist trip.
Exactly. And hey, after those transparent walled toilets, maybe Iceland is redefining luxury altogether.
Wouldn't that be something? Nature as the ultimate luxury.
Okay, that's going on my vision board for sure. But really, what is it about Iceland that captivates so many people? We've got the otherworldly scenery, the rich culture, the sense of adventure.
It's a pretty unique combination. You have this raw, almost prehistoric beauty shaped by volcanoes and glaciers. But then there's this deep human connection, too, with the folklore, the myths, the bond with the land.
Yeah, it's like stepping into a living fairy tale where every turn could lead to a hidden waterfall or a magical creature. It makes you want to pack your bags and just go explore.
Speaking of exploring, let me ask you this. If you, our listener, were to document your own travels, what details would you focus on? Would it be the grand vistas, the quirky local customs, the food? What makes a place truly memorable for you?
Wow, that's a great question. It really makes you think about what we personally value in travel and what stories we would want to tell.
Yeah.
It really does make you think, like, what makes a place special to you? What would you share with others?
Right, and maybe by listening to other people's experiences, we learn more about ourselves, what we're drawn to when we travel.
Exactly. So to all our listeners out there, we want to hear from you. Have you ever been somewhere that totally changed your outlook on things, like you saw the world differently after?
Or maybe you have a story that's funny and heartwarming, like Lao Shu's scolding auntie mystery. We're all ears.
Because at the end of the day, travel is about connecting, isn't it? With new places, new cultures, and with that sense of wonder inside us.
Well said. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up our Icelandic journey for now. Huge thanks to Lao Shu for sharing their adventure.
Be sure to check out their YouTube channel for more. And hey, maybe we'll even find out what happened with that scolding auntie.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those travel stories coming.
Happy travels, everyone.
All right. Welcome back for another deep dive.
Always exciting. What do we have today?
Well, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different.
Oh.
We're going to Iceland.
Wonderful.
In the summer.
In the summer. That's unexpected. I always think of Iceland as this winter wonderland.
You and me both. But we're going to be experiencing it through the lens of this single YouTube video.
Okay, so one person's summer trip to Iceland. What should we expect to uncover in this deep dive?
Well, this traveler takes us to some really amazing places.
Lay it on me.
There's this massive waterfall, the kind that just takes your breath away.
I can only imagine waterfalls have that effect.
But that's not all. There's also this cliff.
A cliff.
Yeah, but get this. It's shaped like a monster's tooth.
Oh, wow. Okay. That sounds pretty unique.
And the most surprising thing?
What's that?
They explore an ice cave in the summer.
An ice cave in the summer? That's a new one for me. I always thought those were strictly a winter thing.
Me too, but apparently not. This video is already full of surprises.
I'm intrigued.
So the video starts with the traveler just driving.
Driving?
Yeah, they're driving through this incredible landscape.
Okay, setting the scene.
It's all glaciers and vast open roads. And they describe it as desolate yet beautiful, which I think is perfect.
There's a certain rawness to Iceland's landscapes, wouldn't you say?
It's like you feel very small. like in the face of nature's power.
I can see that. That kind of stark beauty can be quite humbling.
And you said waterfalls are powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, get ready because this traveler takes us to Iceland's largest waterfall.
Oh, wow, the largest one.
And it's so big that the video actually shows these tiny people at the bottom.
Oh, so you can get a sense of scale?
Exactly. The traveler even compares it to something familiar to us.
To what?
The Yellow River in China.
Interesting comparison. In what way?
Well, they say it evokes the same kind of grandeur as that famous line, you watch it, the Yellow River comes from heaven.
Right, exactly. It's like that feeling of awe and magnificence. Makes you realize some experiences transcend cultural boundaries.
And get this waterfall is one you can experience from all these different angles. Above, below.
Wow.
You can even go inside it.
Wow.
This traveler didn't go inside, though.
Why not?
They were just getting over being sick. But still, that's got to be quite the experience to go inside a waterfall.
I can only imagine. It sounds almost surreal.
Okay, so picture this. You're driving along this incredible Icelandic road.
Right.
And then you come across this cliff.
Okay.
But it's not just any cliff. It's shaped like a giant.
Don't tell me. A monster's tooth.
Yes, exactly. How did you know?
You mentioned it earlier, remember? I'm already hooked on this deep dive.
Oh, right. It's hard to keep track with all these amazing sights.
I bet. So this monster tooth cliff, what's it like? Anything special about it?
Well, aside from its unique shape, it's also home to puffins.
Puffins, those adorable little birds.
Right. The traveler describes them as like chubby penguins that can actually fly.
I love that description. So accurate.
And they add in this little joke.
Oh, what is it?
That they're supposedly quite tasty.
Oh, no.
I know, right? But it's interesting to see how different cultures view certain animals.
It's all about perspective, isn't it?
So, as the traveler's driving around and seeing all these amazing sights, they start to notice something about the animals in Iceland.
Oh, something interesting, I hope.
Well, they say a lot of them seem to be, how do I put this? Cyan.
Fat and short.
Yes. They observed it with sheep and cattle particularly.
That is interesting. Do they speculate why?
They think it might be an adaptation to the harsh Icelandic climate.
That's a good point. The climate definitely plays a role in how animals evolve.
Okay, are you ready for this next part?
Hit me with it.
The traveler decides to visit an ice cave.
Okay. Nothing too surprising there. Iceland is known for its ice caves.
But here's the kicker. They're visiting it in the summer.
Wait, what? In the summer?
I know. It completely changes how you think about ice caves.
I thought those were only accessible in the winter.
You and me both. But this video is full of surprises, remember?
I'm starting to see a pattern here. So they actually managed to get inside an ice cave in the summer.
They did. But because of all the meltwater and stuff, they couldn't explore the whole thing.
Makes sense. Summer melt would make things tricky and potentially dangerous.
But even the part they could explore.
Yeah.
The traveler describes this incredible blue light.
Oh, wow. Like refracting off the ice?
Exactly. They said it was like he or hin, you know, that faint orchid-colored light.
That sounds absolutely magical.
It really does. And they mention feeling kind of a mixed bag of emotions inside the cave.
What do you mean?
Like awe, wonder, but also a bit of terror.
Oh, why terror?
The way the ice was formed, it reminded them of scenes from that sci-fi horror film, Alien.
Oh, I see. Yeah, ice formations can be pretty eerie sometimes.
And they talk about this feeling of unreality, you know, because you're surrounded by ice, but you can still see the sky above.
It's like being in two worlds at once.
Exactly. All right, before we move on to part 2, there's one more stop I have to tell you about.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's a black sand beach.
A black sand beach.
I know, right? But this one was extra special. It had these incredible rock formations that reminded the traveler of the stone forest in Yunnan.
Wow, that's a pretty epic comparison.
They described the rock formations as looking like Old Tina, an eerie and imposing force, basically.
Sounds like a landscape straight out of a fantasy novel.
Oh, and I almost forgot. Amidst all this stunning scenery, the traveler encountered a bit of real-life humor.
What happened?
They were annoyed by someone's dog on the beach.
Oh no, even in the most breathtaking landscapes, those little annoyances can still find us, huh?
It just goes to show, no matter where you go, some things are universal.
Ain't that the truth? I'm excited to hear what other surprises await us in part 2 of this deep dive. So, you left us hanging with that disapproving local encounter. What happened there?
Oh, right, you're not going to believe this. It happened while the traveler was filming that massive waterfall we talked about.
Okay, with a drone.
Yep. And apparently this local woman came up to them and was like, really not happy about it.
I can see why some people might be bothered by drones, especially in a place like Iceland where people go for the peace and quiet.
That's what I was thinking. It brings up all these questions, you know?
Yeah.
Like about responsible travel and respecting the environment.
Yeah, it's tricky. Drones can capture these amazing shots, but we have to think about the impact they have on others.
Definitely. Okay, so remember those summer ice caves that blew our minds?
How could I forget? It's not every day you hear about exploring ice caves in the middle of summer.
It really makes you think about climate change, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like these landscapes are changing right before our eyes.
It's both fascinating and a little bit scary, to be honest. It's like we're getting this glimpse into a world that was hidden before, but for a concerning reason.
And it makes you appreciate the importance of, you know, sustainable travel and doing what we can to protect these places.
Absolutely. Future generations deserve to experience these wonders too.
Okay, one more thing I wanted to ask you about the ice caves.
Yeah.
The traveler mentioned that the ice inside wasn't like pristine white. It was more layered and textured, and they even said dirty at one point.
Yeah. It's not always this picture-perfect image we have in our minds, is it? Ice caves are dynamic environments. They change and evolve over time.
It's like even in the coldest, most seemingly unchanging places, there's still this constant transformation happening.
Exactly. It's a reminder that nature is never truly static.
And remember how they compared the ice to something out of the movie Alien?
Yeah, that was a pretty vivid description.
It makes you think about that feeling of awe, but also kind of unease that these environments can evoke.
For sure. Ice caves are beautiful, but there's also an element of danger to them. It's like a reminder of our own vulnerability in the face of nature's power.
It's amazing how much this one YouTube video has gotten us thinking about, well, everything. From nature to climate change to our own place in the world.
It's the power of storytelling, isn't it? Even a short video can transport us to another place and make us reflect on bigger issues.
Absolutely. So, what do you think is like the biggest takeaway from this traveler's experience so far?
I think it's the theme of juxtaposition that keeps coming up. You have the beauty and fragility of Iceland's landscapes, the traveler's feelings of both awe and apprehension, and the tension between using technology like drones and respecting the natural tranquility of a place.
It's like all these contrasting elements are woven together to create this really compelling story.
And it makes you think about how we as travelers and as just people living on this planet find that balance between exploring and preserving.
It's funny, isn't it? We've talked about these huge waterfalls and ice caves and all this breathtaking scenery, but sometimes it's the little things that you really remember.
It's true. Like those small human moments can really stick with you.
Like that woman who is upset about the drone.
Yeah. What do you think she was thinking?
I don't know, but it makes you realize that travel is about more than just the places. It's the people, too.
It's all about those interactions, right? Even the brief ones can add so much to the experience.
Speaking of experiences, I can't stop thinking about that black sand beach.
With the rock formations?
Yeah. The fact that they reminded the traveler of the stone forest in Yunnan.
It's amazing how our brains connect those dots, you know?
Yeah.
Like two places so far apart, and yet they evoke a similar feeling.
And remember how they described the rock formations? Like sinew, an eerie, imposing force.
Yeah, it's like some landscapes have this power to just completely awe you.
Or even scare you a little bit.
I think it's that reminder that nature is so much bigger than us. Like those rocks have been there for centuries, shaped by forces we can barely comprehend.
And then amidst all of that, you have the traveler getting annoyed by a dog on the beach.
Life finds a way to bring you back down to earth, doesn't it?
It's like those little moments of humor, those little annoyances, they're all part of the experience too.
They make it real.
So as we wrap up this Icelandic adventure, what do you think is the most important thing for our listeners to take away?
Well, I hope they see that Iceland has so much to offer, even in the summer. And that maybe they start to think differently about those familiar places, that there might be hidden gems waiting to be discovered.
I love that. Always be exploring, right?
Exactly. And to approach those explorations with, a sense of curiosity and wonder, and to be open to all the different kinds of experiences that travel can bring, the awe-inspiring and the everyday.
Beautifully said. And to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. How do these summer ice caves, shaped by the forces of climate change our perspective on Iceland's natural wonders? What does it tell us about this balance between exploration and preservation, especially as our world is facing these environmental challenges? Thanks for joining us, everyone. Keep those adventurous spirits alive, and we'll see you on our next deep dive. All right, let's dive in. We're headed to Iceland this time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Our source is this YouTube travel vlog. It's called Super Drama on Iceland's beach.
Okay.
From this channel called Laushu's Diary.
Right.
And it follows this person named Laushu on, you guessed it, a trip through Iceland.
Nice.
And we're joining them on day 4 of this adventure.
Cool. What's on the itinerary?
Well, obviously lots of amazing Icelandic scenery, but
I hope so.
But there's also like some unexpected drama that unfolds. And even a bit of philosophical reflection by the end.
Sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
So, what stood out to you from this vlog?
Well, right off the bat, I was struck by Laushu talking about like expectations versus reality.
Right. I think we all do that with travel.
Exactly. Like, especially in a place like Iceland, you know, you see those classic photos of, you know, like pristine snow-capped mountains.
Yeah.
And that sort of classic Icelandic vista. But Laushu actually uses the word modeled to describe. Modeled, yeah.
Interesting word choice.
Yeah, they were expecting that picture-perfect scene. But what they found was something a little more...
Well, real, I guess.
Yeah. Real and maybe a little bit unexpected.
Yeah.
It's like when we build up those idealized images in our minds.
Oh, totally.
But then the reality's often so much different.
For better or for worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And it makes you wonder if sometimes that anticipation actually sets us up for disappointment.
Absolutely. I've definitely had that happen to me, where I've built something up in my mind only to have it fall short in reality.
Yeah, I think it's about being open to the unexpected. And in Iceland, well, the unexpected can definitely come in the form of weather.
Oh, for sure.
Because even though it was summer when Laushu was visiting,
okay,
they were bundled up in layers. Like they even needed a down jacket for this climb they went on.
A down jacket in summer.
I know.
Wow.
And to make matters even more interesting, it started to rain while they were climbing.
Oh, no.
Light rain, but still. Adding to that chill.
That's rough.
I know. But here's the thing. Laushu actually describes the whole experience as invigorating.
Invigorating, huh? That's interesting.
I know, like pushing through those less than ideal conditions.
Right.
Made the whole thing that much more rewarding.
Yeah. Sometimes those tougher moments, those unanticipated challenges, can really make a trip memorable.
For sure. And, you know, it reminds me of what we were just saying about embracing the unexpected.
Right. There's beauty in that, in not having everything go according to plan.
Absolutely. Oh, and speaking of the unexpected, did you see that optical illusion Laushu captured on the glacier?
Oh, yeah. The one that looked like a deep abyss.
Yes. It looks so treacherous at first glance, right?
Totally. I was like, oh, no, be careful.
I know. But then they revealed that it's actually this small pit, like maybe only a person or two deep.
Wow.
Filled with, like, crystal clear water.
Talk about perspective being everything.
Seriously. It just shows how our brains try to make sense of scale and depth based on limited information.
Totally. And how easily we can be tricked.
It makes you think about all the other things we might misinterpret based on, like a quick glance.
Or a first impression.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then that idea of perspective, it ties in really nicely with Laushu's experience at Diamond Beach. Are you familiar with Diamond Beach?
Oh, yeah. I've seen pictures. It's that black sand beach with the chunks of glacial ice all over it. Right?
Exactly. And being there in the summer actually adds another layer to the experience because Laushu describes the diamonds, which are really those chunks of glacial ice,
right, as
worthless diamond fragments.
Worthless. Why?
Because many of them had already started to melt in the summer sun.
Okay, see.
So, you know, not as sparkly and impressive as they might be in the colder months.
Oh, that's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah, it is a bit poignant, isn't it?
The fact that this incredible natural phenomenon
right.
is constantly changing and that its beauty is so fleeting, it's like a reminder that nothing lasts forever.
Well said.
Which, I don't know, it makes those moments when we do experience something truly special even more precious. You know?
I totally agree. It's like that awareness of impermanence heightens the appreciation for the present moment.
Absolutely. And then, you know, you have this incredible setting of Diamond Beach itself.
Right. What a backdrop.
The contrast of those brilliant ice chunks against the black sand.
It's stunning.
I mean, it's no wonder Laushu uses words like poetic and dramatic to describe the scene.
It's like this collision of elements, raw, unfiltered beauty.
Right.
That just takes your breath away.
And did you notice that Laushu made a point of saying that the photos they shared were completely unfiltered.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's like they're saying, look, you don't need to enhance this.
Right.
It's perfect as it is.
Sometimes nature provides the best filter, you know?
Absolutely. But beyond just like the grand landscape,
Yeah.
what I found fascinating was Lao Shu's observation that like every single piece of ice was unique.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Like each one was sculpted by time and the elements,
Right.
each one sparking the imagination with its shape.
It's so true. Every single piece is different.
It reminded me of being a kid, you know, like finding shapes in clouds.
Oh, totally.
Or rock formations, that kind of thing. That childlike sense of wonder.
I love that.
Makes you want to book a trip to Iceland right now, doesn't it?
You bet. But before we book those tickets, what really grabbed my attention was how Lao Shu juxtaposes all this incredible scenery with this really dramatic personal anecdote.
Oh, what happened?
Well, a friend of theirs was traveling with them,
Okay.
and they get some pretty devastating news.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Through like a very unfortunate iPad location tracking incident,
Oh, wow.
they find out that their romantic partner back in Asia
Mhm.
was being unfaithful.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a harsh dose of reality
Right.
crashing into this idyllic escape.
Like this idyllic Icelandic escape.
Exactly. It just makes you think about how even when we're surrounded by beauty and wonder,
Right.
life's complexities don't just disappear.
I mean, yeah, our personal struggles, those internal landscapes, can be just as vast and impactful as any external environment.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that travel is a multifaceted experience, right? It's not just about the places we visit, but how those places intersect with our own personal journeys, our joys, and our heartbreaks.
Yeah, it's those intersections that create some truly profound moments of reflection, you know?
For sure. And it sounds like there are even more profound moments to come as we continue to follow Lao Shu's journey.
Oh, really?
There's so much more to unpack here.
Like what?
From unexpected wildlife encounters to some really deep philosophical music.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, let's keep diving into this Icelandic adventure.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're back, still in Iceland, thanks to Lao Shu's vlog.
Back in Iceland.
And last we left off,
Yeah.
their friend had just gotten that really tough news.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I'm really curious to see how they kind of process everything amidst, you know, this backdrop of epic landscapes.
Right. It's like, how do you even begin to deal with something like that when you're surrounded by such incredible beauty?
I know.
Well, it seems like, you know, the journey goes on.
Oh, yeah.
And there are still like incredible sights to see.
Okay.
They come across this small hill that Lao Shu mentions that they say resembles an altar.
Okay.
And then there are like these two horses grazing in the distance.
Wow.
But it's like all of these moments are now, you know, kind of tinged with this sense of melancholy. It's almost like the beauty of the surroundings is amplifying the friends' internal struggle.
You know, that's a really interesting point. It makes me wonder if sometimes, like, being in a place that's so vast and grand
Yeah.
can actually make our own personal problems feel even bigger. You know,
Totally.
like the contrast between that epic scale of nature
Right.
and then the intimacy of our own emotions just creates this almost overwhelming feeling.
I think that's a really insightful observation for sure.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later on, Lao Shu shares this the scene of ducks swimming near a cliff edge.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that the water there, it has a really strong current, but the ducks appear so calm on the surface.
Right, like they're just gliding along.
Exactly, but underneath they're, you know, paddling furiously just to stay in place.
It's that classic saying, right? Calm waters run deep.
Exactly.
And it's so true.
What is?
I mean, we all have those moments where we're putting on a brave face.
Yeah.
While inside we're, dealing with our own struggles.
Absolutely.
It's like those ducks, they make it look effortless.
Mm-hmm.
But underneath, they're working so hard just to stay afloat.
Yeah.
And it's a good reminder, I think, that appearances can be deceiving.
Absolutely.
Like everyone is fighting their own battle.
Yeah.
Even those, seemingly serene Icelandic ducks.
Right. And I think it speaks to that resilience that we talked about earlier, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Even in a place as serene and breathtaking as Iceland,
Right.
there's this constant undercurrent of effort and the need to adapt. And, you know, this whole observation about the ducks.
Yeah.
It actually leads Lao Shu to this pretty profound philosophical takeaway.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. What kind of wisdom did they glean from these paddling ducks?
Well, they reflect on how both humans and animals are constantly striving, to achieve their desires.
Okay.
Whether it's, a duck paddling against the current to reach its destination, or a human, navigating the complexities of life to reach their goals.
Okay.
We're all driven by this inherent desire to push forward, to overcome obstacles, and to ultimately create a fulfilling life,
It's such a powerful observation.
It is.
It really makes you think about the motivations behind our actions, the things we're willing to fight for, and the unseen efforts that go into, making our dreams a reality.
Absolutely.
And also like a reminder that nothing in life comes easy.
Right.
Even when we're surrounded by beauty and things seem effortless.
It's true.
We all have our own currents to navigate, our own challenges to overcome.
Right. And, I think that brings us back to that initial theme of expectation versus reality. You know, we might set out on a journey, whether it's, a physical trip or a personal goal, with this vision of a perfect path forward.
Yeah.
But so often, the reality is much messier and more unpredictable.
Right.
And it's in those moments of struggle and adaptation that we truly grow and discover our strength.
It's true. It's like, Lao Zhu and their friend navigating the emotional highs and lows of their Icelandic adventure.
Right.
We too have to learn to embrace the unexpected and find beauty in those imperfections.
Absolutely.
And keep paddling, even when the current feels strong.
Keep paddling. I love that.
Yeah. It's like they say, life is a journey, not a destination.
Right?
And sometimes that journey takes us through some pretty wild and unexpected landscapes,
It does, both internal and external.
Exactly.
I love how Lao Shu's vlog just captures that full spectrum of the human experience,
Yeah.
The awe and the wonder, the vulnerability, the heartbreak, the resilience, the determination. It's a reminder that even in the most stunning of settings, life just keeps happening.
Right.
Relationships evolve.
Yeah.
Challenges arise.
Yeah.
And we're constantly learning and growing.
Exactly.
And sometimes those lessons come from, the most unexpected sources.
Like a flock of ducks.
Exactly.
Paddling furiously beneath the surface of a seemingly calm lake in Iceland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's those unexpected insights, those moments of connection with nature and with ourselves that make travel so transformative.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Lao Shu's Icelandic adventure, I'm curious, like, what resonates most with you?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, is it the contrast between expectations and reality, or the ephemeral beauty of the landscape, or maybe that profound takeaway about the constant striving that connects us all?
There's so much to unpack here.
Right.
So many layers of meaning to explore.
Yeah.
But I think what really stays with me
Yeah.
is that sense of juxtaposition.
Okay.
The breathtaking beauty of Iceland alongside like the raw, unfiltered emotions of Lao Zhu and their friend. Right. It's a reminder that life is full of contrasts.
Yeah.
And that embracing those contrasts, finding beauty in the unexpected, that's what makes the journey so rich and rewarding.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And on that note, we leave you to ponder Lao Zhu's observation about constant striving.
Yeah.
What are you paddling furiously towards in your own life?
Right. What are you working towards?
Yeah. What hidden currents are shaping your journey?
Those unseen forces.
Yeah. We encourage you to explore those questions, and see where they lead you.
Yeah.
Until next time, fellow deep divers. Those ducks, huh?
Yeah.
What about them?
I don't know. It's just funny you should mention them, because I was thinking about how Lao Zhu uses that simple observation, right? To draw this like really profound parallel to the human experience. It's like those ducks are a metaphor for all of us,
I see that.
Striving and pushing forward, even when things look calm and effortless on the surface.
Totally. And I think it speaks to just how universal that experience is,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you come from, what your goals are.
We all face those challenges and have to put in the work to overcome them.
Yeah, and sometimes, like those ducks battling the current,
Yeah.
we might not even realize how much effort someone else is putting in,
Right.
It's a good reminder, I think, to be kind and compassionate.
For sure.
Because you never really know what someone else is going through.
That's so true. And it highlights the importance of celebrating those small victories.
Yeah.
Along the way, you know?
Yeah.
Every stroke of that duck's feet, each step forward we take toward our goals, it all adds up in the end.
Yeah, it's about the journey, not just the destination.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from Lao Shu's Icelandic adventure.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just about the scenery.
Right.
It's about the personal growth, the resilience, the unexpected connections that happen along the way.
Yeah. And speaking of connections, I love how Lao Shu talks about how Iceland's landscape sparked this sense of childlike wonder in them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like the vastness and the beauty of it all transported them back to a time when everything felt new and exciting.
You know, that actually reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about how travel can sometimes like amplify our emotions.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I wonder if being in a place so far removed from the everyday, surrounded by such raw natural beauty, allows us to tap into those deeper parts of ourselves, you know? Those feelings of awe and wonder that we might have, you know, forgotten about in our daily lives.
That's a really fascinating thought. It's like Iceland became a mirror, right?
Totally.
Reflecting not only the external landscape, but also Lao Shu's internal world, like their thoughts and emotions.
Yeah, and by sharing that journey with us through their vlog, Lao Shu's kind of inviting us to do the same, you know?
Yeah.
To look at our own lives, our own journeys with fresh eyes and a renewed sense of curiosity.
I love that. So as we reach the end of our deep dive into Lao Shu's Icelandic adventure, I'm left with this sense of both inspiration and introspection.
Yeah, I feel that.
Inspiration from the stunning landscapes and Lao Shu's resilience, and then introspection about my own journey, you know?
Yeah.
My own paddling beneath the surface.
I love that. What a beautiful way to sum it up.
Thank you.
I hope our listeners are feeling the same way.
I hope so too. And I hope that Lao Shu's story inspires them to embrace the unexpected, to find beauty in the imperfections, and to keep paddling towards their own personal horizons.
Keep paddling, everyone.
Until next time, fellow deep divers. Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're heading to Iceland, virtually, of course.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, well, I hope you think so. We're going to be experiencing Iceland through the words of a traveler who documented their trip and posted it on YouTube.
Okay.
Now, instead of watching the video, we actually had the transcript translated from Chinese.
Interesting. So we're relying entirely on the written word this time.
We are, and I think you'll find it's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
You know, it's not polished or anything, more like someone just jotting down their thoughts and observations as they go.
I like that. It's a raw, unfiltered view. You can really get a feel for someone's genuine experience that way.
Exactly. So we're focusing on day 5 and 6 of this traveler's trip. And day 5 starts with a long drive. The traveler mentions that it's a clear morning, which they say is pretty rare in Iceland.
Yeah, I can imagine the weather there can be so unpredictable.
Right. So a clear morning must have felt like a real bonus. Kind of sets the stage for a good day.
For sure. Sunshine can definitely boost your mood, especially when you're exploring a new place.
Absolutely. And speaking of unexpected things, the traveler has this funny encounter while they're driving. They get scolded by a woman for flying a drone in a no-fly zone.
Oh no, did they realize they're in the wrong spot?
Apparently not at first, but then, get this, they see the woman, wait for it, flying her own drone.
Oh, the irony. You've got to be kidding me.
I know, right? It's a classic case of do as I say, not as I do. I mean, did she not realize the hypocrisy? It makes you wonder, right?
It really does. It's like, do people just tune out their own actions sometimes? Or maybe she had some justification in her mind that made it okay for her, but not for the traveler.
I guess we'll never know, but it's a pretty funny story.
It is. Human behavior can be so baffling sometimes.
So true. Later on, the traveler stumbles upon something else quite unusual. A giant animal skeleton just lying by the side of the road.
Whoa, like a full skeleton.
That's what they say. And there's no explanation, no signs, nothing. Just this massive skeleton adding a little mystery to the trip.
That's so eerie. I wonder what kind of animal it could be.
Right. Iceland doesn't exactly have a huge variety of large land mammals.
True. Maybe a sheep or a reindeer or something from the sea that got washed ashore.
It's a real head-scratcher. It makes you realize there are still some wild, unexplained things out there, even a place like Iceland that's been pretty well explored.
I love that. A little touch of the unknown.
Me too. And, speaking of memorable sights, the traveler stops for lunch in this really picturesque town.
Okay.
They describe it as almost embarrassingly beautiful, like they felt a bit overwhelmed by how perfect it was.
I can totally relate to that feeling. Sometimes a place is just so stunning it almost feels surreal.
Right. Like you almost feel unworthy to be there.
Yes, exactly. Like, am I really experiencing this? It's like stepping into a postcard or something.
Absolutely. And that feeling, that's exactly what the traveler seems to have captured in their description of this town.
It's interesting how a beautiful setting can impact even something as simple as having lunch.
I agree. It's like the beauty of the surroundings somehow elevates the entire experience.
Yeah. Makes you savor it more, maybe.
Definitely. And that brings us to another picturesque location, the Rainbow Town. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I think I have. Isn't that the town with the really colorful path that's all over Instagram?
The one and only. It was also featured in that movie, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Right. I knew it sounded familiar.
It's become quite a popular spot for tourists. Have you ever been inspired to visit a place after seeing it in a movie or a photo?
Oh, totally. It happens to me all the time. It's like suddenly you have this personal connection to a place, even though you've never been there.
That's so true. And it's interesting to think about how film and photography can shape our travel desires, right?
Absolutely. It's like they create this idealized version of a place in our minds. And then we want to experience that for ourselves. But then you have to wonder, does the reality ever live up to the hype?
That's a great question. And I think it depends on the place and on our expectations. Sometimes reality surpasses the hype, and sometimes it falls short.
It's a gamble, for sure. But that's part of the adventure of travel, isn't it?
Absolutely. Embracing the unexpected. Now, from the vibrant streets of Rainbow Town, the traveler heads to a place steeped in history, a Viking settlement.
Very cool.
Yeah. But they mentioned being a bit skeptical about the authenticity of one of the buildings there. Like how much of it is original versus reconstruction.
Yeah, I get that. Historical sites are always tricky, trying to balance preservation with making them accessible and understandable for modern visitors.
Exactly. And plus, as new discoveries are made, the way we understand history can change. What we thought was true might turn out to be a bit different.
For sure, it's constantly evolving. Makes you wonder, how much of what we see at these sites is actually a true reflection of the past?
That's a great point. It's not just about the physical structures themselves, but also the stories we tell about them. Those stories are always being shaped and reshaped as we learn more.
It's a reminder that history is never truly set in stone. It's an ongoing process of discovery and interpretation.
Exactly. Now, while the travelers at this Viking settlement, the weather takes a dramatic turn.
Uh-oh. I hope they brought an umbrella.
I don't think an umbrella would have been much help. Thick fog rolls in, completely obscuring the view.
Oh, wow. So the landscape transforms completely.
It does. They even compare the scenery to a classic Chinese RPG called Legend of Sword and Fairy.
That's an interesting comparison.
It made me think about how our cultural backgrounds can really shape our perceptions, Like the same landscape might evoke completely different images and feelings for someone from a different culture.
Oh, absolutely. I've definitely noticed that in my own travels. What one person finds beautiful or peaceful, another might find eerie or even frightening. It all depends on your frame of reference.
That's so true. And before we leave this mystical, fog-shrouded landscape, we have to talk about the Icelandic horses.
Oh, yes. I was hoping we would get to those. Aren't they adorable with their little haircuts?
The traveler mentioned that too. They're stylish haircuts. And it turns out those thick manes and tails are actually really important for their survival.
Really?
Yeah. They're adapted to the harsh Icelandic climate. The thick hair provides insulation against the cold and also helps protect them from biting insects.
Oh, that makes sense. I knew they were a hardy breed, but I never thought about their hair playing such a vital role. Nature's so ingenious.
It really is. It's like a perfect balance of beauty and practicality.
Yeah.
But speaking of contrast, the traveler's day takes a bit of a less glamorous turn when they end up in a hostel with a seriously noisy roommate.
Oh no, the dreaded snoring roommate. We've all been there.
Right. It's like a universal experience of budget travel. You gain so much in terms of affordability and experiencing local life, but then there are those little inconveniences that you just have to grin and bear.
Exactly. Makes for a good story later on, though.
So true. Now, day 6, The traveler just describes it briefly as being the day they visited the most memorable beach of their trip.
Oh, intriguing. But they don't give us any details.
Nope. It's like a little cliffhanger. We don't know what made it so memorable. Was it the scenery, the sand, the waves, or maybe something more intangible, like a feeling or an atmosphere?
I love that they leave us wondering. It's almost like an invitation to imagine our own perfect beach.
I agree.
Yeah.
It sparks our curiosity and makes us want to see it for ourselves.
Yeah.
And that brings us to something else I found really fascinating about the traveler's account, their reflections on the landscape, especially their thoughts on mountains. They talk about how the sight of those misty, cloud-shrouded mountains invokes the idea of immortals in Chinese culture.
Wow, that's deep.
It is, right? It's like they're not just looking at a mountain, they're seeing layers of meaning and mythology. And it made me realize how our cultural backgrounds can so profoundly influence our experience of the natural world. What do you think?
I think you're spot on. It's like we bring our own stories and beliefs to the landscape, and they become interwoven with what we see and feel. It's fascinating.
It really is.
So we have a traveler who finds humor in the midst of scolding, mystery in an animal skeleton, and philosophical musings inspired by a foggy mountain. I'm hooked. Tell me more about this Icelandic adventure.
Oh, we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover in day 6 and beyond. We'll have to save that for next time.
I'm really curious to hear more about this connection between mountains and immortals in Chinese culture. It sounds fascinating.
It is. The traveler explains that in Chinese mythology, mountains are often seen as the dwelling places of these immortal beings. And seeing those Icelandic mountains shrouded in mist, it's like they could almost imagine those mythical figures emerging from the clouds.
Wow, I can see how that imagery would be so powerful. It's like the landscape itself is imbued with this sense of ancient magic and mystery.
Exactly. And it makes you think about how different cultures perceive and interpret the natural world, right?
Right.
What might seem like just a beautiful view to one person can hold deep cultural and spiritual significance for another.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that our perceptions are always shaped by our experiences and our cultural backgrounds. I mean, think about how many stories and myths are associated with mountains across different cultures.
It's true. From Mount Olympus in Greek mythology to Mount Kailash in Hinduism and Buddhism, mountains seem to hold a special place in our collective imagination. They represent something enduring, something that connects us to the past and to something larger than ourselves.
They do, and I think there's something about the sheer scale and permanence of mountains that evokes a sense of awe and wonder. Like they've witnessed the passage of time, the rise and fall of civilizations, and yet they remain standing.
It's humbling, isn't it? And it makes the traveler's reflections on those Icelandic mountains even more poignant. They're not just admiring the scenery, they're connecting with a landscape that's steeped in mythology and meaning.
It's a beautiful example of how travel can be so much more than just sightseeing. It can be a journey of self-discovery and cultural exploration. And speaking of exploration, the traveler's journey continues with a visit to that memorable beach we talked about earlier. Remember, they didn't give us many details, just that it was the most memorable beach of their trip.
I know, it's driving me crazy with curiosity.
Me too. What do you think made it so special?
Well, they do mention that they had to drive on a gravel road to get there. So maybe it was a bit off the beaten path, a hidden gem that not many tourists find.
Ooh, I like that. A secluded beach with unspoiled beauty. Or maybe it was something about the landscape itself, the shape of the coastline, the color of the sand, the way the waves crashed against the shore.
It could be any of those things. Or maybe it was a combination of factors. Sometimes a place just has a certain atmosphere, a feeling that you can't quite put into words, but that stays with you long after you've left.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like a sense of peace or a feeling of connection to something larger than yourself.
Yes. And it makes you realize that the most memorable travel experiences aren't always about the big tourist attractions. Sometimes it's the smaller, quieter moments that have the biggest impact. Like stumbling upon a secluded beach or feeling a sense of awe in the presence of a mountain.
And I think that's what's so special about this traveler's account. They're not just checking off destinations on a list. They're really taking the time to observe, to reflect, and to connect with the places they visit on a deeper level.
They are. And that's what makes their journey so inspiring. It reminds us that travel is about so much more than just seeing new places. It's about opening our minds and hearts to new experiences and new ways of seeing the world.
Beautifully said. And I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Agreed. But don't worry, our deep dive into this Icelandic adventure isn't over yet. We still have day 6 to explore, and who knows what other surprises this traveler has in store for us.
I can't wait to find out. So join us next time as we continue to delve into this fascinating journey through the words of a traveler who's not afraid to share the unique perspective on the world.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
It's funny, we started this deep dive talking about how unconventional our source material is, a YouTube video transcript. But honestly,
and one of the most engaging deep dives we've done.
I agree. There's something about this traveler's voice, their way of describing things that just pulls you in.
It does. It's like we're right there with them, experiencing Iceland through their eyes. The drone incident, the mysterious skeleton, those foggy mountains. It's all so vivid.
And thought-provoking, too. I mean, their reflections on those mountains and the connection to immortals in Chinese culture, that really stayed with me.
Me too. It's a reminder that there's always more to a place than meets the eye, and that our own backgrounds and experiences shape how we see the world.
Exactly. We each bring our own unique lens to our travels. And those different perspectives, that's what makes exploring the world so fascinating.
It does. And speaking of exploring, I'm still curious about that beach, the one the traveler called the most memorable of their trip.
Oh, me too. I keep picturing it in my mind, trying to imagine what made it so special.
I know. I'm picturing black sands, maybe some dramatic cliffs, and those incredible turquoise waves that you sometimes see in Iceland.
That sounds amazing. And maybe it was completely empty, just the traveler and the vastness of the ocean. A perfect moment of solitude.
Or maybe there were seals basking on the shore, or some unique rock formations carved by the waves. We just don't know.
It's like a little mystery that the traveler has left for us to ponder.
It is. And in a way, I kind of like that they didn't spell it out for us. It gives us the space to create our own interpretations, our own image of this perfect beach.
I agree. It's like they've given us a starting point, and now we can each fill in the details with our own imagination.
And that's what makes this deep dive so special. It's not just about learning facts about Iceland. It's about sparking our curiosity, inviting us to think differently about travel, and maybe even inspiring us to explore the world with a fresh perspective.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's been a true journey of discovery, thanks to this traveler and their unique way of sharing their experience.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, if you're looking for a new adventure, maybe a virtual trip to Iceland is in order. Check out the YouTube video, the link is in our show notes, and see what resonates with you.
Let your imagination run wild. Picture those foggy mountains. Imagine yourself driving along those scenic roads, and see if you can create your own vision of that unforgettable beach.
And remember, travel is about more than just ticking off destinations. It's about opening ourselves up to new experiences, new perspectives, and new ways of seeing the world and ourselves.
Well said. So, until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
We'll see you on our next adventure. All right, so get ready because today we're going on a deep dive to Iceland.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, we're going to be checking out this travel vlog.
Okay.
From a channel called F.I. Jujuri.
I don't recognize that one.
Yeah, it's a Chinese channel, and the video is called F.I. Jujuri.
So, we're not going to be able to understand what they're saying.
Well, there are translations, so that's super helpful, but honestly, even without the translations, this video is just incredible to watch. I mean, just visually stunning.
So are you saying we're gonna see some amazing landscapes?
Oh yeah, you are gonna see some really cool things like this waterfall that was featured in the movie Prometheus.
Oh wow, really?
Mm-hmm. And we're also gonna see a beach that the vlogger says is like the best part of their whole trip.
That sounds really cool.
And there's also this mysterious landmark, and we don't even know what it is.
Oh wow.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
All right, so the video starts out at this waterfall called Dedifoss.
Dedifoss, okay.
Have you ever heard of it?
Oh, I have not, no.
Well, it's famous for being in the opening scene of Prometheus.
Oh, really? Prometheus. Okay, so aliens and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You remember those engineer aliens?
Right, yeah.
So the vlogger's super excited to be there. I mean, they even point out that it was in Prometheus. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, when you visit a place that you've seen in a movie or something, it makes it feel different.
It does, almost surreal,
Yeah, and I think it also makes you think about how, movies and pop culture can actually change how we experience things in real life. All of a sudden, this waterfall in Iceland is connected to this whole story about aliens and like the beginning of humanity.
Right, it's like fact and fiction all mixed together.
Exactly.
Okay, so the waterfall itself is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, it is massive.
Oh, wow.
Like you can really feel the power of nature when you see it.
I bet.
And then after Dettifoss, things get really interesting because the vlogger ends up finding this totally secluded beach.
Wait, how do they find it?
They just take this random unmarked road.
So it's like a total accident.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm.
And I think that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah, like those moments when you discover something completely unexpected.
Right.
It's like the best part of traveling. But I guess it also makes you think, you know, like not everyone has the opportunity to just wander off and find hidden beaches.
True, yeah, it's a good point. Like it's a privilege to be able to travel and explore like that.
Definitely.
But anyway, this beach, it looks absolutely incredible in the video. I mean, just white sand, crashing waves, and totally empty.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, and the vlogger even finds pieces of driftwood with writing on them.
Huh, that's interesting.
So they decide to write their name in the sand too, you know, just to kind of leave their mark.
I like that.
And what's really interesting is that the vlogger actually says that this beach, this random hidden beach, became like the most memorable part of their trip.
More memorable than the waterfall.
More than anything.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Wow, that's really saying something. You know, I think it's so true, though. Like, sometimes those unexpected moments, they just stick with you more than the things you plan out.
Right, like it's about the feeling you get from a place, not just seeing the sights.
Exactly.
Okay, so from the beach, the video takes us to this big, open grassland.
Oh, okay.
And you can see this flat-topped mountain in the distance.
What kind of mountain?
It's hard to describe. It's like this really distinct shape, almost like a plateau. And get this, even after looking on Google Maps, they can't figure out what it is.
No way. So it's like a mystery mountain.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because it makes you realize that there are still places in the world that are like undiscovered.
That's true.
Or at least undocumented.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's this funny part with the vloggers trying to film themselves blowing on dandelions.
Oh, yeah. I love those slow motion dandelion shots.
Right. But it doesn't really work out for them. It's kind of cute though. It just makes the whole thing feel more real, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's not like those super polished travel shows you see sometimes. This is like a real person just experiencing things.
Exactly. Okay, so towards the end of the vlog, they stop in this town called Blunduis. It's on the coast. And of course, they have to try some local food.
Of course.
They get salmon and some kind of fish soup, but they don't actually say what kind of fish it is.
Oh, interesting.
And they also get lamb shank. And the vlogger compares it to a meal they had in Alaska once.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Like, food can be so universal.
Right. Like, you can have similar experiences in completely different parts of the world.
Yeah, and it connects you to people in a way that goes beyond language.
So what did we learn from watching this Icelandic adventure? Well, for one thing, it definitely makes you want to go to Iceland, right?
For sure.
But it also shows how powerful it can be to just get out there and explore and be open to unexpected discoveries. Because sometimes the most memorable moments are the ones you don't plan.
That's so true.
It makes you think about all those hidden gems that are just waiting to be found. Yeah, like that beach.
Exactly. So I'm curious, have you ever stumbled upon a place like that? A place that was more special than any famous landmark? It's something to think about. You know, I bet you could find a place like that anywhere if you just look hard enough.
Yeah, you probably could.
And if you want to experience Iceland vicariously, be sure to check out this video. It's worth watching, even if you don't understand Chinese.
I will.
All right, well, that's it for our deep dive today. Hope you enjoyed the journey.
I did. Thanks.
See ya.
See ya. All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today...
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, so today we're going to Iceland.
Okay.
And...
The land of fire and ice.
Yeah, exactly. The land of fire and ice.
All right.
And we're looking at this YouTube video with a pretty interesting title.
Oh, yeah.
Which translates to...
I was going to say, what is that?
Icelandic horses almost hurt my butt.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's a vlog-style travelogue full of these little stories and observations that make you feel like you're right there with them on the trip.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like when you first saw this, what was the thing that jumped out at you?
You know, and it's funny.
Yeah.
It's that contrast you see between this like picture-perfect image of Iceland.
Right. Yeah.
You know, beautiful, serene.
Like pristine.
Exactly. And then you have what this YouTuber is showing us.
the reality.
The reality. Like, take the horses, for example.
You know, you think majestic creatures.
Galloping across those wild landscapes.
Would use your hair, epic scenery, all of that.
Right, very romantic.
But this YouTuber, not so much.
Okay, what happened?
Well, first of all, they were dealing with swarms of bugs. Like, to the point where riders are wearing face masks.
Like, to keep the bugs out?
Yeah, just to keep from swallowing a mouthful every time they breathe.
Oh my gosh, I did not realize it was that bad.
Yeah, and it's like those little details, right?
Totally.
That you don't get from the brochures.
No.
And it makes it so much more real.
I love it.
Yeah, it makes it feel like you're actually there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of real, let's talk about the tolt.
What's that?
So it's this gait that Icelandic horses are known for.
Okay.
Now, most of us, we know walk, trot, canter, right?
Sure.
This is different.
Yeah.
It's this 4-beat lateral gait,
Okay.
meaning each leg hits the ground independently.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's super fast, like rhythmic. So imagine like a really smooth, almost like gliding kind of motion.
I'm trying to picture this.
And the horse's back stays pretty level. So once you get used to it,
Right.
it's actually supposed to be really comfortable to ride.
Okay, but that's a big but.
Well, our YouTuber, remember the title of the video?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, they had a little bit of trouble with the tolt.
Oh, no.
Yeah, let's just say their description of the experience.
I bet it's colorful.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Very colorful. Very much on the hilarious side of painful.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Icelandic horses, they're kind of in a league of their own.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've been isolated on the island for centuries, right?
Yeah.
So they've developed all these unique characteristics.
That makes sense.
Yeah, including that gait,
Oh, yeah.
which is perfect for the terrain.
Yeah, so it's like even the horses tell a story about Iceland's isolation.
Exactly.
Fascinating.
All right, so let's move on from the
Yeah.
posterior challenges of Icelandic horses.
Right.
And,
I'm ready for the next adventure.
okay, how about sheep?
Sheep.
Yeah, and specifically their rear ends.
Okay, this is interesting.
So the YouTuber points out that the sheep always seem to be facing away from the camera.
Oh, really? Like showing their backsides?
Yep, for the whole world to see.
That's hilarious.
It's a running gag throughout the video.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny, but it also makes you think, like,
Oh,
is it just coincidence?
right.
Or is there something more to it?
Yeah, like a hidden message from the sheep.
Maybe. Like a commentary on the tourist's perspective.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like we're only seeing this very specific view.
Like we're missing the full picture.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, it adds a whole other layer to something that at first just seemed like a funny observation.
It's all about perspective, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So we've got horses with their own rhythm, sheep turning their backs on us.
Right.
What else does this trip have in store for us?
Oh, well, there's also a really sweet encounter with a seal pup.
Oh, I love seals.
This little guy just pops up on the shore,
Oh,
basking in the sun, and the YouTuber's commentary. It's just so heartwarming.
I bet.
Yeah, like they're trying to figure out what the seal's thinking, what kind of adventures he's been on.
They're like projecting a whole personality onto the seal.
Totally.
That's adorable.
And it's just genuine, you know? Like
Mhm.
their love for nature and their ability to find wonder in these simple encounters.
It's a nice contrast to the sheep, right?
Oh, yeah.
The sheep are all like, nope, not interested. And this seal's just chilling, enjoying the attention.
Exactly.
Great.
So we've got horses with their own rhythm, sheep seemingly turning their backs on the camera, a friendly seal just hanging out.
This is shaping up to be quite the adventure.
Yeah, and we're just getting started.
Okay, so tell me, what are your initial thoughts on Iceland based on what we've seen so far?
Well, it's definitely not what I expected.
How so?
I guess I had this idea of Iceland being very, you know,
Picturesque.
yeah, picturesque and serene, but this is showing me a different side.
More rugged, more real.
Exactly. And I kind of like it.
Me too, me too.
It feels more authentic somehow.
Agreed.
So yeah, I'm intrigued.
I'm excited to see where this goes.
Me too.
All right, let's dive deeper.
Okay.
You know, it's pretty amazing how this YouTuber can go from those funny observations
Yeah.
to some really insightful stuff too. And speaking of insightful,
Yeah.
let's talk about that volcanic landscape they visit.
Oh yeah.
They describe it as something straight out of Journey to the West,
Right.
which makes sense with all those crazy rock formations and rugged terrain.
It's like stepping onto another planet.
Totally.
And then to add to that whole Journey to the West vibe,
Yeah.
you know what they do?
What?
They break out some drunken fist kung fu moves.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
Oh.
right in the middle of all that epic scenery.
I love it.
It's hilarious.
But it also kind of says something, don't you think? About how travel can bring out that adventurous, playful side of us.
Oh, totally.
And how our own cultural backgrounds influence how we see new places.
It's true. We all bring our own lens to the experience.
Exact.
Okay, but get this.
What?
This volcanic area,
Yeah.
it's also a filming location for Game of Thrones.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. That's so cool.
The YouTuber doesn't say exactly which scene was filmed there,
Okay.
but it's still a fun little Easter egg for fans.
I wonder if knowing that a place has been in a movie or show makes people more likely to visit.
I think so, for sure.
Like, hey, I've seen that on TV. I want to see it in real life.
Yeah, it adds that extra layer of interest.
Definitely.
So, from epic landscapes, the YouTuber takes us to a small Icelandic town.
Oh, okay.
And they have this really interesting encounter with a kid.
Ooh.
Yeah, the kid seems kind of frightened by the YouTuber.
Come.
They think it's because, well, the kid had never seen an Asian person before.
Oh, wow.
Probably because of the pandemic and not many people traveling.
And it makes you realize, you know,
What?
how travel can expose us to such different realities and challenge those assumptions we might have.
Yeah, we can get so caught up in our own little bubbles.
Exactly.
I'm glad the YouTuber shared that story.
Me too. It's those kinds of moments that really make you think.
Speaking of moments, any updates on that lost luggage situation?
Oh, you know,
Curse.
that storyline keeps popping up throughout the video.
Classic.
Just adding to the whole travel isn't always perfect vibe.
It's refreshing, honestly.
Say that.
Yeah, it makes the whole thing feel more real, more relatable.
For sure.
Makes the YouTuber seem more human, too.
Absolutely.
Oh, by the way, what was that about creepy dolls?
Oh, yeah. They mentioned seeing some creepy dolls in that small town.
Hmm.
It was just a quick comment, but it definitely piqued my interest.
Right. Like, what's the story behind those dolls?
Exactly. Are they connected to some local myth or something?
I don't know, but now I want to find out.
Me too.
It's amazing how these little details can open up whole new avenues of curiosity.
That's like those things you'd probably never even think about if you were just looking at a travel brochure.
Exactly.
And that's what I love about travel.
Yeah.
It's not just about seeing the sights.
Mm-hmm.
It's about like expanding our understanding of the world.
And of ourselves.
Totally.
So, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Unique landscapes, interesting wildlife, even touched on Icelandic folklore.
Mm-hmm.
What's resonating with you the most so far?
You know, I think it's that idea of embracing the unexpected.
Yeah.
Like, things aren't always going to go according to plan, right?
But that's part of the adventure.
And sometimes those unplanned moments are the ones you remember the most.
Absolutely.
Like, who would have thought sheet butts would be such a memorable part of the trip?
You never know what's going to stick with you.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
Yes.
Just how much we've talked about from this one video.
I know, right? Sheep butts.
Globalization, creepy dolls.
Lost luggage.
It's all connected.
It really is.
I guess that's the thing about these personal stories.
Yeah.
They're just so, I don't know, full of life.
They are. And this YouTuber,
Yeah.
they just have a way of pulling you in.
With their humor, their
Yeah.
honesty,
that vulnerability, yeah.
makes the whole experience so much more relatable.
I think that's why we're enjoying this so much.
Definitely.
It's not just like, here are the facts about Iceland.
Right, it's like we were right there with them,
Feeling those bumps on the horse.
dodging those sheep.
Exactly.
And I feel like we've learned so much more about Icelandic culture this way.
For sure, we've gone beyond the touristy stuff.
Yeah, and had to really think about those deeper questions.
Like, what does it mean to be a responsible traveler?
Yeah, how do we make sure tourism benefits everyone?
Important stuff.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I want to turn it back to you, the listener.
It's your turn.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Has this video changed your perception of Iceland at all?
Anything surprise you?
Did any specific detail stick with you?
Yeah, like, were you drawn to the horses or maybe the folklore?
What about those sheep?
Maybe they sparked something in you too.
Because ultimately, that's what travel's all about, right?
Discovering something new.
Expanding our horizons.
Embracing those unexpected moments.
And who knows?
What?
Maybe you'll even be inspired to try riding an Icelandic horse someday.
Just, maybe wear some extra padding.
Yeah, good advice.
Until next time, keep exploring
Keep learning.
and keep diving deep.
See you in the next deep dive.
All right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time, picture yourself in Iceland, but we're not just talking about the usual touristy stuff, you know, the glaciers and waterfalls.
Right.
We're going deeper. We're experiencing Iceland like a local.
Okay, like it.
Through the eyes of a vlogger named Lao Shu. He's documenting his adventures on YouTube. His channel is called Lao Shu's Diary.
Lao Shu's Diary?
Yeah, and we're diving into one of his videos specifically titled, Can You Eat Scallops Straight from the Icelandic Ocean?
Interesting. So is this like a cooking show?
Not exactly. It's more of a travel vlog, but with some seriously unique experiences.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of experiences are we talking about?
Well, he starts off kind of spontaneously with a boat trip.
A boat trip, huh?
Yeah, he calls it a temporary uprising, like a spur-of-the-moment decision.
Sounds fun. Like, is it one of those fancy tourist cruises?
Not at all. He ends up on like a smaller boat with a group of people. And get this, they're not fishing with rods or anything. They're pulling up this massive net full of like all sorts of sea creatures.
Whoa, like what?
He mentions all sorts of shellfish, different colors, shapes.
So it's like a seafood buffet from the ocean.
Pretty much. He even mentions seeing sea urchins and scallops.
Wow. And then what, do they just cook them right there on the boat?
They eat the sea urchins and scallops raw.
Raw. Straight from the ocean.
Yeah. Talk about fresh, right?
Wow, that's adventurous. I don't know if I could do raw seafood like that.
He shows the whole process using like a kind of rusty knife to open the shells.
Rusty.
It's all very rustic, practical, not fancy at all.
I guess when the food's that fresh, you don't need much fuss.
He even mentions that there were some other Asian tourists on the boat who, like, couldn't get enough. They just kept coming back for more.
Sounds like they were loving it. So is that it for the boat trip?
Well, the seafood feast is over, but the adventure continues.
Oh, of course. What happens next?
Back on land, he has this kind of amusing encounter with some Icelandic sheep.
Icelandic sheep. I've heard they have that, like, super thick wool.
Exactly. And he describes them as a bit standoffish at first, you know, just turning their backs on him.
Sheep being sheep.
But later on, he catches them making, like, direct eye contact.
Oh.
Almost like they warmed up to him as he was exploring their territory.
That's kind of sweet.
Then he comes across this mountain, and he nicknames it, get this, Elephant's Trunk Mountain.
Elephant's Trunk Mountain.
Yeah, he says it reminds him of some snack he used to have as a kid.
Interesting. I wonder what snack looks like an elephant's trunk.
He doesn't say, but it definitely makes you picture this, like, unique mountain shape, right?
Definitely. So is he, like, hiking through the wilderness now?
He does visit the Black Church, which he describes as very stark, simple.
I've seen pictures. Very striking against the landscape.
But he doesn't stay there long. His next stop is a town called N3.
Okay.
And he's greeted with a nice change in weather when he arrives.
Gotta love that unpredictable Icelandic weather.
He talks about how the sunlight just transforms the whole town, making it burst with color.
Yeah, I bet. Light can make such a difference, especially in a place like Iceland with such dramatic scenery.
While he's there, he picks up a souvenir, a whaleboat carved from a single stone.
That sounds beautiful.
But he also mentions having a not-so-pleasant encounter while shopping.
Oh, what happened?
It sounds like there might have been some tension with the locals. He doesn't go into detail right away, though, so it leaves you wondering.
Makes you curious, huh? So we've got breathtaking landscapes, sheep encounters, hints of cultural tension.
But what about the food, right?
Right. What else did he eat besides all that raw seafood?
Well, he mentions that he always feels full in Iceland, even though the meals are pretty simple.
Really?
Yeah, he says he's never particularly hungry. Like, Icelandic food, even though it's simple, must be super satisfying.
I've heard they eat a lot of fish.
Oh, definitely. He mentions having fish almost every day.
Makes sense, being an island nation and all.
But get this, he tries horse meat.
Horse meat? Wow, okay. That's not something you see on every menu.
He was hesitant at first, actually. He had just been horseback riding and felt a connection to the horses.
I can understand that.
But he ends up trying it anyway. He says it tasted like tender beef. But it wasn't cheap, like $30 a plate.
Whoa, okay. So a delicacy then, maybe? Not an everyday meal.
So far, we've covered a good chunk of Lao Shu's Icelandic adventure, and it's just the beginning.
I know. From ocean depths to mountain peaks, sheep encounters, unique food. What else is in store?
Oh, there's more. Stay tuned because his Icelandic saga continues.
I can't wait to hear what happens next.
So remember that unpleasant encounter Lao Shu mentioned while souvenir shopping?
Yeah, the one that left us hanging. What happened?
He finally gives us the details, and, well, it does make you think.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Remember that whaleboat he bought with the stone-carved head?
Yeah, that unique souvenir. What about it?
Well, as he was paying for it, he noticed the cashier just kind of ignored him.
Ignored him? Like how?
Started talking to some white tourists behind him, like Lao Shu wasn't even there.
Oh, it's awkward. Did he say anything?
He mentions feeling invisible, like his presence didn't even matter.
I see.
And this incident, along with a few other smaller things, got him thinking.
About?
If there might be, like, some underlying biases against Asian tourists in Iceland.
That makes sense. It's a good point. You know, even in places known for being welcoming.
He does emphasize that most people were really kind, but those few instances, they stuck with him.
Yeah, I bet. It makes you question things, you know.
But anyway, let's move on from that. His culinary adventures continue.
Okay, good. What else did he try? I mean, besides the raw seafood.
Well, there's one dish he was pretty hesitant about.
Let me guess. Fermented shark.
Yep. Hawkarl, as they call it.
The infamous hawkarl. I've heard the stories.
He even shows other tourists trying it. Their reactions are priceless. Some are like, others surprisingly, you know.
It's one of those things, right? You either love it or hate it.
He finally tries it himself, describes the taste as an assault on the senses. Compares it to blue cheese mixed with cleaning products.
Wow, okay. Yeah. Vivid.
Admits he could only handle one bite, but glad he tried it.
Yeah, that's the spirit. Stepping outside your comfort zone, yeah.
And speaking of stepping outside comfort zones, he heads to a place of incredible beauty next.
Oh, where to this time? More mountains.
Even better, the Blue Lagoon.
The Blue Lagoon. I've seen pictures, those milky blue waters. It's like another planet.
He captures it beautifully in his vlog, talks about the feeling of weightlessness in the water, the mineral-rich water.
Sounds relaxing. Did he have any more interesting encounters there?
While he's at the Blue Lagoon, he sees something amazing.
Oh, a whale? No way. Wow, that's incredible.
He says it was a magical moment, this massive creature emerging from the water, then disappearing just as quickly.
I bet. It makes you realize how vast and mysterious the ocean is.
He talks about how that whale sighting, it made him reflect on the interconnectedness of everything.
I like that. It's a good reminder we're all part of something bigger.
And with that powerful encounter, we've reached a turning point in Lausch's Icelandic adventure. He's experienced so much, the beauty, the challenges, the unexpected.
It really makes you wonder, how has it all affected him? What will he take away from this trip?
So we're nearing the end of Lausch's Icelandic adventure. He's seen and done so much, it makes you wonder what's left the biggest impression.
Right, like, has this whole experience changed his outlook at all?
As he's wrapping things up, he spends some time reflecting. He talks a lot about those vast landscapes.
The mountains, the ocean, all that.
Exactly. He mentions how being surrounded by all that, it made him feel really small, almost insignificant.
I can relate to that. Nature has a way of putting things in perspective, doesn't it?
But for him, it wasn't a bad feeling. He actually describes it as, like, liberating.
Liberating.
Yeah, like finding peace in knowing his place in the grand scheme of things.
I see. Kind of like accepting that we're just a small part of something much bigger.
And he also talks about how life in Iceland, it's so simple, focused on nature and community. It made him think about his own life back home.
Makes you question your priorities, maybe?
He specifically mentions being kind of envious of their sense of community.
Oh yeah, I've heard that about Iceland. Like, people really look out for each other.
He talks about how even though he's surrounded by people back home, he often feels isolated.
That's unfortunately pretty common these days. Everyone's so busy.
It makes him wonder how to cultivate that same feeling of connection when he gets back.
Tough question. It's like, how do you build community in a world that's constantly moving so fast?
He doesn't have all the answers, but he mentions wanting to simplify his life, focus on relationships.
Sounds like his trip gave him some food for thought.
And that's what's so great about Lao Shu's story. He's not just showing us the sights, he's sharing his personal journey.
Right, the good and the bad, the reflections, the doubts. It makes it more real, relatable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are your takeaways? Anything that stood out to you?
For me, it's a reminder that travel is more than just sightseeing. It's about opening yourself up to new experiences, new ways of thinking.
And even though we can't all go to Iceland, we can all try to bring that same sense of curiosity and openness to our everyday lives.
Exactly. Explore your own backyard, challenge your assumptions, connect with people. Who knows what you might discover?
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this journey through Iceland. Until next time, keep exploring. Hey everyone, ready for an adventure? This time we're diving deep into Iceland.
But we're not flipping through brochures, are we?
No way. We're taking a different route for this deep dive. You know you were all curious about Iceland.
Right.
So we found something really cool, a YouTube vlog by a Chinese-speaking traveler.
Ooh, interesting. What makes this one special?
Well, it's not your typical glossy travel show, you know. It's raw, unfiltered, and totally personal. You see all the anxieties, the little mishaps, the real stuff.
Sounds refreshing. It's like getting a peek behind the curtain.
Exactly. You feel like you're right there with them. And this traveler's journey starts with a visit to the iconic Blue Lagoon. You know, those dreamy pictures we've all seen, people floating in that milky blue water.
The Blue Lagoon.
Well,
It's definitely on a lot of bucket lists. Geothermally heated seawater, rich in minerals, especially silica, gives it that otherworldly color.
it looks so peaceful and luxurious in the photos, but our traveler discovered that reality can be a bit different.
Oh, how so? Crowded.
A little bit, yeah. Plus, they were a bit nervous about going post-COVID. Worried about getting sick, you know?
Yeah, I think we've all felt that at some point. Traveling in the post-pandemic world definitely comes with new anxieties.
And let's be honest, who hasn't felt awkward trying to take a good picture in a swimsuit while trying to keep their phone dry?
Uh-huh. That's a classic travel struggle. But even with the crowds and the worries, what stood out to me was the traveler's comment comparing the Blue Lagoon to high-end spas.
Really? They thought it lived up to the hype.
Yeah, they even praised the silica mud mask and the complimentary drink, so maybe it is worth braving the crowds after all.
Okay, I'm adding it back to my list. So, from the Blue Lagoon, our traveler heads to Reykjavik. And I have to say, their experience really captures the city's vibe.
Reykjavik is often overlooked, don't you think? I mean, everyone's drawn to the glaciers and volcanoes, but it's a surprisingly vibrant city, especially for its size. Think about it geographically, it's closer to Greenland than mainland Europe.
It's easy to forget that, yeah. So what was it like for our traveler? Did they head up any museums or historical sites?
Actually, what caught my attention was their night out at a local bar with a live band.
Oh, what kind of music?
They were playing a Pink Floyd cover. Another brick in the wall, to be precise.
No way! The traveler even called it a memorable moment in city life. That's so cool. It just goes to show you never know what gems you'll find when you're exploring. You know, speaking of finding gems, this traveler is a major cat person.
Oh, me too. I'm always on the lookout for furry friends when I travel.
Well, it seems like Reykjavik might be a cat lover's paradise. The traveler kept bumping into friendly felines everywhere they went.
Ah, that's adorable. I can picture it now. Cozy cafes with cats napping in sunny windows. It fits the image of Reykjavik, right? That laid-back, almost village-like atmosphere.
Totally. And they even made friends with a dog at one point. Which makes sense. I hear Reykjavik is super pet-friendly.
Yeah, that tracks with my research. It seems like dogs are welcome almost everywhere in Iceland.
It's like a little dose of wholesomeness, right? Those small, everyday encounters often tell you more about a place than any guidebook ever could. So our traveler, in addition to making some furry friends, also did some good old-fashioned sightseeing. They took a city walk, even posing with a polar bear statue.
A polar bear statue in Iceland.
Yep. Apparently it's quite a popular landmark. And they even got caught up in a game of hopscotch with some local kids.
Okay, that sounds adorable. It paints such a charming picture of Reykjavik. Playful, child-friendly, welcoming.
Right. And while they were strolling through the city, they made an interesting observation about Iceland's approach to gender equality. They mentioned that the president has a same-sex spouse.
That's true. Iceland is actually considered a global leader in LGBTQ+ rights and gender equality. Remember Jóhanna Sigurðardóttir?
Wait, refresh my memory.
She was Iceland's prime minister back in 2009, and she was the world's first openly gay head of government. It was a huge milestone.
Wow, I had completely forgotten about that. So the traveler's observation wasn't just a fun fact, it actually reflects a deeper societal commitment to inclusivity. That's pretty amazing. Okay, on to everyone's favorite topic, food. The traveler doesn't go into a ton of detail about what they ate, but they do mention loving the Icelandic bread.
Bread. Interesting. I wonder if they were referring to rugbrauð.
What's that?
It's a traditional dark rye bread, and get this, it's baked in geothermal hot springs.
Wow, that's incredible. I've never heard of anything like it. What's it like?
It's super dense, has a slightly sweet flavor, and it's definitely unique. Or maybe they were talking about lofabrauð.
Another kind of bread.
Yeah, it's a thin, crispy, flat bread that's usually fried and decorated. Very intricate patterns, actually. They're both pretty special.
Okay, I'm definitely adding those to my list of things to try. All right, now buckle up for the most unexpected stop on this Icelandic adventure. Our traveler stumbled upon the Phallological Museum. Museum.
Wait,
You heard right, the Phallological Museum. Apparently, they took tons of pictures but weren't sure if they should share them online.
I can imagine why. It's definitely not your average museum subject matter.
Right. Platform restrictions and all that.
So what did they end up sharing?
Mostly pictures of small animals and maybe a reference to a cat's anatomy and some toys, oddly enough.
Understandable. They were playing it safe, I guess. It's a museum that definitely pushes boundaries, but for all the, shock value, it actually approaches the subject from a scientific perspective.
It's true. And here's the part that really made me laugh. They have an exhibit of plaster casts from the Icelandic men's handball team.
What?
Yep. And apparently, according to our traveler, it was a very popular attraction.
Okay, that's hilarious. It's like Iceland found a way to blend humor and national pride even when dealing with, well, penises.
Right. You have to admire their sense of humor. Definitely not your average museum visit. Okay, so that wraps up the first part of our Icelandic adventure. We've gone from luxurious lagoons to the quirky streets of Reykjavik, and even encountered some, shall we say, interesting anatomical specimens.
And it's only just the beginning. In the next part, we'll hear about the travelers' reflections on the trip, including some of the challenges they faced and what they call writing issues, which apparently left them with a bit of a love-hate relationship with Iceland.
Stay tuned. It's about to get even more interesting.
Welcome back to Iceland. We're picking up where we left off with our Chinese-speaking travelers vlog.
Last time it was all Blue Lagoons and Pink Floyd covers.
The fun stuff.
Right. But in their final vlog, our traveler gets real about the not-so-glamorous side of the trip. Starting with, you guessed it, money.
Yes, the budget. Iceland has a reputation, doesn't it?
For being expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And our traveler doesn't sugarcoat it. They're upfront about the cost, but they frame it in an interesting way.
How so?
As an investment.
An investment.
They call it an investment in an unforgettable experience.
I like that. It's a good perspective shift.
Right. And they don't seem resentful about it at all. Instead, they talk about the value they got, the incredible landscapes, the people they met, even how much they learned about themselves.
It's a great example of value-driven travel. Sometimes it's worth spending a little more for an experience that truly resonates with you.
Totally. It's not just about seeing the sights, it's about what you take away from it all. Okay, now this is where things get interesting. The traveler admits to having a bit of a love-hate relationship with Iceland.
A love-hate relationship.
Yeah, what do you think they meant by that?
Well, on the one hand, they rave about the natural beauty, that sense of freedom you get exploring wide open spaces. But they also hint at some frustrations.
What kind of frustration?
They mention transportation and something called writing issues.
Writing issues? Maybe public transportation. I've heard that it can be pretty limited outside of the main cities.
Could be. Or maybe they were referring to driving conditions.
Oh, right. Iceland's weather can be pretty unpredictable. And the terrain.
Rugged. Maybe they had a rough time with a rental car or navigating those gravel roads.
Okay, so maybe those picture-perfect road trip photos we see online don't tell the whole story.
Exactly.
And their love-hate relationship goes beyond just getting around. They also talk about Iceland's imperfections, specifically the impact of tourism.
That's a big one. Iceland has seen a massive boom in tourism over the past few years. And while it's great for the economy, there are downsides.
Like what?
It strains infrastructure, resources, even the culture itself.
So it's about finding that balance, right? Between experiencing these incredible places and being mindful of our impact as travelers.
Absolutely.
And I think it's refreshing that the traveler acknowledges these complexities. It makes their experience feel more honest, more relatable.
It does. It reminds us that responsible travel is about more than just eco-friendly hotels or reducing our carbon footprint. It's about engaging with a destination on a deeper level.
Understanding its challenges, respecting the local culture.
Exactly.
It's about being a conscious traveler, not just a consumer of experiences. Now, despite the challenges, the traveler ends on a positive note.
They do.
They do. They reaffirm their love for Iceland and encourage others to visit, but to do so thoughtfully, with an open mind.
That's a powerful message. It's about embracing the whole picture, the good and the bad, understanding that no destination is perfect.
It's about being open to learning, adapting, appreciating the nuances of a place.
Well said.
And, you know, it makes me think about their experience with the Phallological Museum.
It does.
It does. In the context of their whole journey, even that kind of makes sense.
I see what you mean. It's quirky, it's unexpected, definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's part of what makes Iceland so unique. You've got a point. We often associate museums with high culture, perfectly curated exhibits, a certain air of seriousness.
Right. But the Phallological Museum, with its mix of science, humor, and, let's be honest, shock value,
It challenges those assumptions.
it reminds us that even in the realm of art and culture, there's room for the unconventional, the irreverent, the things that make us uncomfortable.
I love that. And you know, the traveler's experience with the Phallological Museum also raises a bigger question about social media.
Oh, how so?
Well, they were hesitant to share certain photos because of platform restrictions, which speaks to this idea of self-censorship, the curated image we often present online.
That's so true. It makes you wonder, are we really getting the full picture of a place when we rely solely on those perfectly filtered Instagram posts and travel blogs?
Are we missing out on the messy, the unexpected, the things that don't fit into that perfect square?
And are we, in turn, perpetuating a distorted view of travel for others? It's something to think about, especially as we become increasingly reliant on social media for inspiration and information. Back for the final leg of our Icelandic adventure. We've covered a lot of ground with our trainee-speaking traveler, haven't we?
From serene lagoons to, well, let's just say unconventional museums.
Exactly. And you know, we ended last time talking about social media's influence on how we see travel. Do those picture-perfect squares really tell the whole story?
Right. Our travelers' hesitation to share photos from the Phallological Museum, even without any rules against it, really got me thinking. It was more about what they felt comfortable putting out there, you know?
It's like they were self-censoring, almost internalizing those unwritten social media rules.
And that makes you wonder, are we all sort of trapped in a travel echo chamber?
Are we only seeking out and being shown experiences that fit a certain mold, the things that get likes and shares?
And missing out on those quirky, unexpected moments that make a place truly unique. Like our traveler's vlog, it really stood out in that way. Just raw and honest.
Totally. Remember those writing issues they mentioned? We could guess all day about what that meant.
Right.
But that mystery is part of what makes their story so engaging.
It reminds us that travel isn't always predictable, not always Instagrammable. And that's okay.
It's those unexpected challenges that often make the best stories, don't you think?
Absolutely. It goes beyond just ticking off landmarks on a list.
Yeah.
It's about engaging with a destination on a deeper level, bumps in the road and all.
Our travelers' experience felt more real because they embraced the unexpected.
Makes you think about how we plan trips, too. Are we so focused on hitting every must-see that we forget to just, wander a bit?
Leave room for spontaneity.
Exactly. Remember how they stumbled on that Pink Floyd cover in Reykjavik?
Yeah.
You can't plan for moments like that.
And honestly, those moments often reveal more about a place than any guidebook could. Imagine if our traveler had just shown us the highlights, the perfect shots of Icelandic landscapes.
It wouldn't have been nearly as compelling.
Right. By including those challenges, those imperfections, they gave us something much richer, something we can connect with.
And it made their message at the end so much more powerful. They weren't just saying, go to Iceland. It was more like, go experience Iceland for yourself with all its complexities.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's bring it back to social media. Yes, it can create echo chambers, but it can also be a tool for connection, for discovering voices like this travelers.
The key is to be mindful, both as consumers and creators. Are we seeking out different perspectives? Are we being honest about our own experiences, even the messy parts?
Using social media for genuine connection, for real exploration, not just self-promotion.
Maybe it's even about rediscovering the joy of getting lost, both literally and figuratively, when we travel.
What a great thought. What kind of traveler do you want to be? What stories will you discover? And how will you share them with the world? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, happy travels, everyone.